Okay, so if I click it, but I don't have any media, let's say I do have some media in the
Sorry, I fixed the sound. Thank you, Wesley and Brian. Appreciate
Brian.
that. If you've not seen the poll, go. I don't think you can vote in anymore.
It's closed.
It's closed now. But Diesel, you know what's interesting about that? I think March Madness, much like the Super Bowl, is a sporting event that attracts a lot of casual sports fans. And I don't think the casual sports fan is intrigued with blue blood matchup versus blue blood matchup followed by blue blood matchup to the extent of a basketball fan. Does that make sense? I think that the casual sports fan out there, they need the upsets and the storylines to kind of pique their curiosity in a way.
That's an interesting theory. I've always genuinely believed that on the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament, so the round of 64, people want to see upsets. They want to see McNeese State beat Clemson. They want to see Louisville go down, but they also want to see that, and they mostly want to see that when it's the 1, 2, and 3 seeds. Outside of that, they could kind of care less. They're like, oh, okay, Clemson loses to McNeese. Big deal. Clemson's not really a big basketball brand anyway, right? They would love to see, and I'm not talking about seeding this year, but I'm just speaking in generalities. They would love to see Kentucky lose to McNeese State.
Right.
They want to see Arizona and Kansas and Auburn and Duke lose to McNeese State. They don't really care that much if Clemson loses to McNeese State because it's a 5-12.
So that
happens all the time.
So that matchup itself was not enough.
I don't think so.
Of a spark.
I don't
right?
think so because most people don't think of Clemson as an elite basketball brand.
It's interesting
Because they're not, and they haven't been for a long time. It's going to take another 5, 6, 10 years of Brad Brunell getting this team into the NCAA tournament year in and year out to have that kind of a consideration from a casual fan. So I found that poll really interesting. And you know what's funny, Cole, is you and I did not talk about this. You and I were not texting over the weekend.
No.
But both of us put up polls in roughly the same vein of, gauging people's interest level and engagement level with the NCAA tournament within 2 hours of each other.
That's smart.
And we didn't talk about it at all. You put up your poll, and I thought that the results there were absolutely fascinating. I put up a poll 2 hours after you did, without seeing yours, by the way, that asked, what percentage of March Madness would you say that you've watched so far?
Yeah.
And the 4 options were 100%. I've watched every moment. And that is a fan in and of their own class. The fans that have 5, 6 TVs going, and you see the posts all over the place. Kelly Ford had his post up where he showed his array of 5 TVs, and I think there was another big screen off to the side. So he had 6 TVs, one of which was just a static image of the bracket. So he could just always look over and reference it at any time. Option number 2 was between 60 and 90%, and that's the fan who watches as much of it as they possibly can. 10 to 50%, which is some of it, and then 0%. Fans, and I was shocked that we had anybody on the Fan Upstate Twitter page who said 0. They hadn't watched any of the tournament because, in theory, you are a sports fan. I guess that's maybe Cornchip, because Cornchip says he hates watching the NCAA tournament.
There was one other person that also said they weren't a college basketball fan last week. I can't remember exactly who it was. But I think I fall in that 60 to 90.
Yep.
I missed a little bit over the weekend. I would say over the weekend I was 90. I was at Clemson Baseball Saturday and had a couple of games going on my computer, Diesel, the St. John's, Arkansas. But I would fall in that 60 to 90, and then I would also fall into somewhere in the middle on the poll that I put up. I think, so both polls, I've watched 60 to 90%. I don't think it's been very boring, but I wouldn't say it hadn't been boring. You know what I mean?
Right.
Somewhere in the middle is where I fall.
I fell probably in the lower end of the 60 to 90 range, Cole, because I can't sit on my couch all weekend long and watch sports. I can't do it. I have other interests I got to go do, and I got a wife who would divorce me if I sat there for 4 straight days without moving. She'd say, what the heck is wrong with you? Who have I married? Why am I in this relationship? So I would probably fall in the lower end, like the 60% range, but I try to watch as much of it as I can. Maybe I don't watch every single moment of every single game because that's really tough to do. And I got to get up and go to the bathroom every now and again. So what's interesting about that is we had 27% say they've watched between 60 and 90%. 63% said they've watched between 10 and 50% of the tournament, so just some of it. That's by far the highest number. And I wonder how many of those people fell into kind of the same categories that were in your poll. They started watching it, they found it boring, and they tuned out. Maybe they watched select matchups, but not sitting there basically watching wall-to-wall coverage for 4 straight days.
And that's what I'm curious of, Diesel. If when you talk about the majority of people who are watching March Madness, I would genuinely, and I know we can't do this because like a Twitter poll, you can't really get the answer from every single person out there. However, I'm curious as to those who are not diehard college basketball fans. For those out there who would consider themselves more of a casual, do they prefer, Diesel, to have a team pull an upset in the first round, maybe even the second round, make an appearance in the Sweet 16, and then they're checked out regardless? Because then when you get to the Elite Eight and the Final Four in the national championship, I feel like those are your diehard, your hardcore sports fans that are watching. I don't know that your casual fans make it through the Sweet 16. I think the world tunes in on Thursday, Friday, right, of last week, Saturday, Sunday to see chaos. I don't think the world genuinely cares about Kentucky versus Arkansas.
Right.
I think they just want to see chaos.
I think, and you may say this is blasphemy, and that's okay. I think that when you hit people with 4 straight days of wall-to-wall coverage, you end up in a place of fatigue where fans have said, oh, God, I took off work Thursday or Friday, or I sat there on my computer all day watching this while I was at work. I wasted a whole bunch of time. And, like, it's the weekend now. I want to be able to spend time with my family. I want to be able to go outside, touch some grass for a while. I think, Cole, maybe if they split days, days 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 up, separating them, rounds 1 and 2, separating them by a day or 2, make it Monday must-see TV, Monday, Tuesday must-see TV again. Maybe you end up in a spot where there's a little less fatigue. The weather's finally turning nice. People want to go outside and spend time outdoors instead of spending 4 straight days. So if it was a block of 2 days and then another block of 2 days, maybe that would change some things in some people's minds.
Let's see what the Tolos are saying. Wesley on Facebook on the stream where you can watch the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Wesley says, I love having games all day the first few days, but going days without any games isn't fun, like today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Is it possible to stretch them out more to less days off for viewers? Brian says, I bet we will see an upset in the Sweet 16. I watch maybe 60%. Okay. Wesley says, simple fix. Bet on the games, and you'll watch more.
well, Wesley, the betting apps are growing.
Yeah, he's right about that, by the way.
One problem, a lot of people feel intimidated about jumping into betting on props, betting on player props in college basketball, especially, right? Like anybody feels like they can jump in and bet on the outcome of the game, right? Like I've got a little bit of knowledge. Yeah. I feel like they might even not know the players, but I feel like Duke is better than so-and-so. So I feel like I can bet the outcome of the game. Betting props, individual player props, requires a tremendous amount of knowledge, and it's really difficult to get a lot of these parlays right. Yeah. So maybe some people, and we're also in the Bible Belt, Wesley. I know that we're all sports nuts here that watch all day, every day, and that's all we think about. So we have a little more knowledge built up than your average lay fan. But there's a lot of people who are just saying, you know what, I'm not into sports betting. I'm not going to do it.
There are some that aren't. Now, I will say,
not
even
us.
for someone like me, me, I don't get into the props. I never have. It's challenging to me. It does take a lot of attention. I just never have got into the props. So that is a fair point. On the text line, 844-FAN-PHONE, it's the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line for those of you that did not know. JT and Greer says, I think people would say it's boring if they don't have a team still competing. That's fair, but
we got the highest percentage of teams competing in just about any sport, right? You got 68 out of 300 some odd Division I teams competing in this thing.
Yeah.
Your team or a team near you that
Should
you have
be.
some emotional connection to should be in this tournament.
Like Clemson obviously went out in the first round, and I do think to an extent that plays a part, right? I think a lot of Clemson fans probably checked out, Diesel, because number one, their team wasn't there.
Fair.
Number two, they were a little hurt, a little heartbroken, right?
It happens.
Well, it happens. Dewey on the text line says that's why you're doing bad on your brackets. You need to watch 100% of the games.
Thanks, Dewey.
If Rob Brown can watch sports 24/7, so can you, says
Well,
Dewey.
hey, Dewey, by that logic, that doesn't make any sense. It's backward logic because watching the games after I've already made my picks doesn't affect my picks.
It doesn't help you at all.
So you're an idiot here. You don't know what you're talking about.
Dewey, where are you in the wire-to-wire bracket challenge, big guy?
Dewey, where are you?
I like that. I'm 33rd,
I'm
Dewey.
way down the line.
Ray Memorial. I think there was a name change, by the way.
I changed mine. to putting the L in Diesel.
Well, see, I think the guy who was leading, remember last week, I think he changed his name because now it's Ray Memorial.
Interesting.
TRBS. So I don't know if that's his name or not. I will say this. Tolos, the top two are the Rob Brown show. I don't see, where is Rob Brown on here? Rob Brown took a drop over the weekend.
Uh-oh.
So he's 26th. He's
Rob-
26th. Not bad.
Rob took Auburn as his national champion.
That's correct.
The best thing that could happen for me, not for everybody else, but the best thing that could happen for me is Auburn taking it on the chin and going down. I need Auburn to lose
To Michigan?
Yeah. Bad. Not because I have Michigan. I don't think a lot of people had
No,
Michigan
I didn't.
making the Elite Eight.
They
So
got hot.
I don't think anyone's scoring on Michigan in the Elite Eight. But I need Auburn to lose so badly I can't stand it. That's my only chance to be able to make some kind of headway back into this thing.
Corn Chip on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, still didn't have any March Madness this weekend. Too excited that I fell into some Savannah banana tickets next weekend. And
Cool.
that is awesome, by the way.
with you on that.
But let me ask you this. I think that's a big part of it. I think people who call themselves sports fans, even if they don't have a team, Diesel, in the hunt, I think they want to see chaos. Why do people watch NASCAR races? They want to see wrecks. People want to see chaos. And while there were some wrecks, there weren't any just outlandish wrecks over the weekend, right? Like McNeese beating Clemson, to your point. I think you're right. It is a upset. But did the nation view that, like we viewed it here? You and I talked about it for an entire show on Thursday. But how did the nation view Clemson? And we'll ask Rocco Miller, who we're having on the show at 4:20 today, how did the nation view Clemson losing to McNeese? Maybe, just maybe, the nation didn't really view that as much of an upset. Because, to your point, Clemson's not really considered a basketball school.
And viewed as an upset at all.
That's what I'm saying.
So we're just getting this update being sent into the stream. I'm not seeing it yet on any of the big-time reporting websites.
So, you talking about T-Swizzle?
I'm talking about T-Swizzle.
Yeah, that's true. I saw it about an hour ago.
So T-Swizzle is getting us a heads up, and so it appears as if Clemson guard Del Jones and Chauncey Wiggins are entering the transfer portal.
That is correct.
That is going to be brutally tough.
I saw Del. Let me say
tough
this.
for Brad Brunell to come out of this hole.
I saw Del Jones in the portal. I have not seen Chauncey. Who reported Chauncey?
Again, these are small level accounts. I'm not seeing anything from major accounts posting this yet. So
Did you say T-Swizzle said Chauncey?
No, T-Swizzle did not say Chauncey.
Gotcha.
I searched for Del Jones, and I'm seeing other tweets that say Chauncey Wiggins as well. Grain of salt, because this is not a major account reporting this.
I've seen Grayson Mann and Chapel Fowler both report Del Jones. So let's see. Grayson Mann says Clemson guard Del Jones has entered the portal. That was just over an hour ago. Transfer portal, guard Del Jones. I haven't seen anything about
that's what
Chauncey
I don't
Wiggins.
understand. Del Jones was set to get a lion's share of playing time next year
100%.
as a sophomore.
Yes.
Unless there was some reason for him to believe that Clemson was not going to up his NIL, not Clemson, but all the people who pay them NIL money, whoever these shadowy figures are. if he was led to believe that he was not going to be getting a financial boost from those individuals, why not stay where you are? Because I'm not sure you put enough on tape to even warrant a big-time NIL bump somewhere else.
So, Diesel, Joe Tipton, and others are reporting it.
That's
Clemson's Chauncey Wiggins in the portal. And then, obviously, we saw Dale Jones about an hour ago, but Joe Tipton of On3 Sports is reporting Chauncey Wiggins in the portal. Chapel Fowler tweets out, "I can confirm that Clemson forward Chauncey Wiggins is also entering the portal." That's 3 today, Diesel. Wiggins, Dale Jones, and forward Asa Thomas. Asa wasn't a big player in terms of playing time, but 3 Clemson players in the portal today.
You Clemson fans are not going to recognize a single name on this roster next year.
Woo.
Victor Locken gone. Jaden Zachary gone. Ian Shefflin gone. Chase Hunter gone. Woo. Chauncey Wiggins gone. Dell Jones gone. This is tough. I watched it happen to my team last year. App State had their probably best team in a long time last year. And then almost all of them just said, "Peace, coach. We're out of here.
Wow.
We're going somewhere else." And it's brutal to watch it happen.
And you're right. Those are 2 guys. You know what's wild about that, and I'm sure
you want to be able to build around Dell Jones, Chauncey Wiggins, and who was the third player you said?
Well, yeah, I forgot the third player because he didn't play.
Okay.
He never played. I will say this, though, to your point about playing time, obviously money probably has something to do with this. However, Diesel, those 2 guys, you're talking about starters next year, Wiggins and Dale Jones. So 2 pieces that Brad could have probably built around that are now gone. Whew. I'm telling you, man, I know there are a lot of people out there who will tell you everything's going to be okay, trust in Brad Brownell. But it's what did Matt Smith tell us last football season that I have remembered ever since he told us, and it's the transfer portal taketh, and the transfer portal giveth, or it giveth and it taketh away, right? The portal giveth, but it also taketh away. We saw that with Florida State football, right? A couple of years ago. This is not good for Brad. Diesel, now he's got to build an entire roster.
Yeah, well, it was Leonidas in the movie 300 that said, "Give them nothing, but take from them everything."
Man.
And right now, Clemson basketball is experiencing the latter part of that. The take from them everything. Everything you had coming back is gone.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. God. I will say this.
I think the best programs, this applies to football as well, the best programs keep 80% of their roster intact from year to year to year. Then you bring in the extra 20% to fill slots. I mean, what did Brad Brownell do last year? He was able to bring in 2 or 3 key pieces to add to the roster. This year he did the same thing, 2 or 3 key pieces to add to the existing roster. Next year he's starting from scratch.
Also, Diesel, South Carolina's Nick Pringle, who was at Alabama last year. South Carolina this year, he's also now in the portal. It'll be really interesting. That's a big blow. So Dale Jones in the third was Asa Thomas. He didn't really play, but three guys. To your point, it's going to look a lot different next year. I do anticipate Clemson having to take a swing on some guys quick, maybe like Virginia guard Isaac McKinley, who is also entering the portal, who's a really good player. It's things got interesting today in Clemson. There's no doubt. I mean, we all know that Brad Brownell's a good coach, but the portal, man, it definitely changes the game.
Well, it changes the game when you need to go get a piece from the portal. It really you're playing a whole different ball game when you have to go get an entire team from the portal, and that is tough.
Welcome to college athletics, folks. That is all it boils down to. Let's take a look at the best moments from the round of 32 over the weekend. It started on Saturday and went until Sunday. Tolos, from the round of 32, what games stood out to you the most? Some really good games, I thought. Some really good matchups. My favorite happened on Saturday. We'll get into that. And take a look at the rest of the games that happened over the weekend that we were not on air to talk about. All of that and more next. Did anybody else notice that? Or no?
Rob Brown!
Can I read?
Rob Brown, get it together.
Can I? Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to try to replay that, the very end of it.
Oh, my God.
Because that was great. No, when I try to pull it, it's a rotator, so I can't.
It happens.
That was fantastic. So
if
you didn't hear, you know how sometimes like when me and Diesel are on the radio, and I'll have, for those of you that don't know, the computer up here has a slider where I can control the volume and play something off of the computer, as we do a lot. If I leave the slider up, what is that, a update sound or
I don't know what that chime is.
It's like a doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo. Anyways, you just heard it on the Rob Brown promo for tomorrow, and Diesel and I couldn't stop laughing about it. It's at the very end. It's almost like a
very end.
Doo-doo-doo.
So I think it's like an update that you have. You have an update or something that needs to be done to your computer, like your system.
Yeah.
And Rob was recording his voiceover for that promo, and then right at the very end, it pops out in the middle of his voiceover, and he didn't realize it.
That's fantastic.
And he didn't catch it when he was editing the promo together, and he didn't catch it when he was loading it into the system. So that means it's going to play for 24 hours.
So good, man. Quick scoring update for you. The Lady Longhorns, who were the number one team in the country for quite some time, are absolutely putting it to Illinois, 56-37. Texas is defeating Illinois right now. NC State put it to Michigan State earlier today. So NCAA round 2 for the women's is ongoing. We'll talk a little Lady Gamecocks a little later in the show. But from the round of 32, what games stood out to you? The text line, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, is open at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The phone lines are also open at the same number. So many already commenting in the stream, which you can do so, Tolos. If you haven't done so, join the stream for the first time when you get home from work. To continue to turn it on and leave it on, you can pull up the stream on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the Fan Upstate and watch the remainder of the show. But what games stood out to you? Which ones did you find most intriguing? We had Auburn defeating Creighton on Saturday. Houston defeated Gonzaga. Arkansas over St. John's. Tennessee defeated UCLA. Texas Tech defeated Drake. BYU defeated Wisconsin. Purdue defeated McNeese. And Michigan defeated A&M. Those were the Saturday games, Diesel. I, as we talked about on Friday, would say that the one that I watched every play of was Arkansas St. John's, right?
Sure, yeah, great game.
You had Calipari versus Rick Pitino in a very good game. Toward the end of the game, though, for you Tolos that watched, you saw, Diesel, St. John's couldn't make a shot. They couldn't throw the basketball into the Atlantic Ocean if they tried to. Arkansas, a team that is now going to the Sweet 16, that started the SEC play 0-5. Think about that. A team that started SEC play 0-5, now in the Sweet 16, just when people thought John Calipari made the wrong decision to go to Arkansas, and it might take him some years to build. The very first year he goes and his team is in the Sweet 16. They were the better team Saturday. There's no doubt. Rick Pitino, I don't think less of him as a coach now, Diesel. However, their team, for whatever reason, I don't know if they lost their legs, they couldn't hit anything in the last few minutes. It was bad.
Well, that right there is why you paid John Calipari $7 million a year.
Yeah.
That's his base pay, by the way. It can go up from there. You spend the kind of money, you invest in the best of the best coaches because you want them to be able to turn it around immediately. Sure. That's his job, is to turn it around immediately. Take decent talent. What did he say last year? He's like, we can't have a team meeting because there is no team. We're starting from scratch. We have to start over. Now, if you want to compare, and again, I'm not.
Met with the team. There is no team.
There you go. We're going to see what a $7 million coach versus a $3.5 million coach can do.
Sure.
Because Brad Brownell's a $3.5 million coach. He's been in his institution for a long, long time. He's had some decent success in the transfer portal era. And he's going to have to do exactly what John Calipari did. Now, he's doing it from a position where I've been here for a decade or more. John Calipari just got here, and we'll see. We'll see what the difference between a $3.5 million and a $7 million coach is.
St. John's, by the way, from the floor, ladies and gentlemen, St. John's was 21 of 75.
Ouch.
That is, Diesel, a whopping 28% from the floor.
Yeah, not good.
No, 2 of 22 from behind the three-point line. That is 9.1%. 9.1% from behind the three-point line. They couldn't shoot the ball. And I know, the experts out there, the John Fantas of the world, and the experts when it comes to college basketball, they'll break this game down for 30 minutes. But it's very simple. St. John's couldn't shoot. They could not shoot, much like Clemson in the first half against McNeese on Thursday. St. John's couldn't find the bucket. I mean, there's not much more to say. Kane on the YouTube stream says the St. John's game was gross to watch. I very much regret picking them to win. It was hard to watch because of the shooting, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, Kane, did you have them winning just this game, or did you have them winning the whole thing? In which case, that's gonna sting on your bracket.
Sting. Forrest on Facebook says Duke Baylor game. If Duke shoots like that, they're going to wipe the field. Fair point. And that's a Sunday game. We'll get to that one in just a second, Forrest. But the rest of the Saturday games, Diesel, the number 1 seed Auburn won. The number 1 seed Houston won. Mm-hmm. Arkansas was an upset. That was a 10 over a 2.
Yeah.
Tennessee, no upset there. They were 2. UCLA was a 7. Texas Tech, no upset. They were a 3. Drake was an 11. They won. The only other one that was really an upset was Michigan over A&M and BYU over Wisconsin.
Michigan was a 24-loss team.
24 losses
last year.
Yeah.
Last year, and they turned this thing around.
Sure.
Here's what I like about this tournament this year, Cole, is I think a majority of people, they want to see chaos for the first round, and then they want to kind of see things settle into chalk from there on out. Mostly 6 seeds or higher,
sure,
making the Sweet 16. What's fascinating about this year is we do have mostly chalk making the Sweet 16. The outlier here, like we just talked about, is Arkansas being a 10 seed, but they just so happen to have a first ballot Hall of Fame coach who just came there this year. Outside of that, Cole, you got a 6 seed in Ole Miss. You got a 6 seed in BYU. Everybody else is a 4 seed or higher in this tournament. Oh, sorry about that. 5 seed or higher. Michigan is a 5. Purdue is a 4. Maryland's a 4. Arizona's a 4. Kentucky is a 3. And then you got 10 seed Arkansas with a legendary coach. This, I think, is settling down into kind of what people wanted to see. People generally want to see is, okay, we've had the great stories. We've had the guy from that program who carries the boombox, and everybody's interested in that story for about a second. But now we got generally pretty good basketball teams going at each other. Sweet 16 is where the tournament really starts.
Well, you can't have both, right? And I think you're right in the sense of from now to the big game, to the national championship, we're going to have what we want. Now, I will say, BYU, ladies and gentlemen, they're legit. And I'm not just saying that because I was high on them. They scored 91 against Wisconsin. Richie Saunders is phenomenal, 25 points on Saturday night. BYU, man, I'm telling you, they're going to be a matchup problem, I think, for Alabama is who they're matched up against. And then on Sunday, as Forrest was talking about with Duke Baylor was one of the first games. UConn, Florida was the game of the day for me, though, man. 77-75, Florida defeats UConn. Diesel, who would have thought Dan Hurley would be the one crying and complaining about the officials all after the game? No back-to-back-to-back this season. 2 is enough for Dan Hurley because the defending national champions are toast.
Yeah, that's a compelling story as well. Everybody was bagging on Dan for not taking the Lakers job, for coming back to UConn, got a huge new contract. All right, they struggle a little bit this year, go 24-11. They wind up an 8 seed in this tournament. Wow, they got to face number 1 Florida, and then they take them right there to the brink. This game was tied at 31 at halftime, and then Florida won the second half by 2 points. It was an epic basketball game, and it just goes to show, Cole, that things can go wrong for you a couple of times over the course of the season, but when you've got one of those special head coaches and a couple of special guys on the team, you can make a deep run and play the best teams, right to the brink.
Forrest says, although Auburn won, I think Creighton showed that Auburn's very beatable. Pretty much held Janai Broome to nothing. You're right. I think Auburn's beatable as well. Creighton put up a good fight. Baylor-Duke, not a game. As you said, Forrest, Duke looked phenomenal. If they play like that, to your point, they are going to wipe the field. There's no doubt Cooper Flagg was fantastic. Tyrese Proctor, 25. On Saturday, Duke shot the ball incredibly well, 64%. Diesel, think about that. Duke shot the ball 64%. Baylor shot it at a 36% clip. I mean, it's just not even close. They wiped the floor with them. Then Bama, St. Mary's wasn't close. Not really the best game there. New Mexico did go down to Michigan State last night, so the Patinos are officially done.
New Mexico State was always just within striking distance, but couldn't hold it together.
That was a good game,
in the biggest moment. I think they got a little bit scared of the big moment, and they couldn't quite get it done because they had that thing within, I think, 6 points under 2 minutes to play, and then that's when they start making dumb mistakes. That's when the things just kind of fell off.
Credit to Rick Pitino, though, Diesel, for after losing in Providence, flying to wherever it was in the middle part of the country where New Mexico was playing to watch his son coach against Tom Izzo, and he was in the stands. Rick Pitino was in the stands just like a normal dad, so credit to him. That was really cool to see. Kentucky, Illinois, 84-75. The Big Blue continue to roll. They're playing well right now, man. Not a lot of people are talking about Kentucky. They're playing well. I mean, that's a team that I look at, Diesel, and think, okay, they don't have Calipari anymore. They have a coach from BYU and Pope, right? They may feel like the underdog for the first time in a long time. I think Kentucky's better this year than they've been in several years. I think they're a team you could watch.
Have you realized that we have 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16?
Yeah.
Nearly half.
Yeah.
Nearly, and we didn't know for sure how this was going to play out. I mean, we had an inkling that the SEC would perform well in the in the NCAA tournament. If you had asked me how many teams do I think the SEC gets in, probably 4.
Sure.
Just by 25% of the Sweet 16. That's a really solid performance for the conference.
Oh, they've been good.
7.
Yeah.
7.
Ole Miss was fantastic
Missouri
last night.
crapped the bed against Drake.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of who else. Vandy played in an epic ball game.
Sure.
Lost to a team that was a 7 seed. It was ranked higher, seated higher than them.
So Ole Miss defeats Iowa State 91-78. Maryland last night defeats Colorado State in the game of the night. I mean, just buzzer beater. You want your March Madness. There you have it. Maryland 72 over Colorado State 71. Maybe it was a travel. Maybe it was a gather. You can say what you want about that. Arizona, and then the last game of the night, defeated Oregon, Diesel 87-83. Arizona was a really good team last year. Looks like they're going to be another good team this year in the Sweet 16.
Side note about that Colorado State game is Nico Medved, former Furman head coach, who was at Colorado State for a couple of years, made way for Bob Ritchie to step into the big chair. He is leaving Colorado State, and he is headed to Minnesota, which is kind of a shocker to me. I mean, I know Wisconsin is really good, and so maybe that's Minnesota's impetus to invest in a high-quality coach. I know Minnesota's getting a good coach, but, man, a program that just doesn't have a whole lot of history of being an elite program, that's an interesting choice.
They must have a lot of this.
Where is the ACC hiring in an attempt to hire Nico Medved? There's Florida State's going to need – well, Florida State hired a new guy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is a conference – that needs to be getting these elite coaches, especially when you had them in your own backyard for like 10 years and nobody gave them a phone call. That one just blows me away.
Speaking of the SEC, real quick, Texas, the Lady Longhorns are all over Illinois right now, 63-42 in the second round of the NCAA Women's Tournament.
When we come back, Cole, let's just do a truncated version of our game show, Marketplace Monday. That's coming your way next. for the game show that is sweeping the upstate. We call it our Marketplace Monday. It's where Cole and I find 2 or 3 sports-related items that are for sale in the upstate of South Carolina. We share with each other the description, and the other tries to guess what this item is currently listed for. So I've got 3. Cole, are you ready?
Yeah, you go. I'll
Okay.
guess first because I'm still getting mine.
Okay, here's one. This is a South Carolina Gamecocks Wounded Warrior Project custom mini helmet. It is a replica of a helmet worn against Auburn in 2011. Features the standard Carolina Block C with sort of a custom digital pattern filling the C with the Garnet Gamecock perched inside. What would you guess that this item is
mini
listed
helmet,
for? A
you
mini
say?
helmet, yeah, much like the one we have over there, but it's for the other team.
Yep.
And it's a custom Wounded Warrior Project mini helmet.
Now, does it have the Wounded Warrior like camo is a normal color?
Well, the Block C has, if that's the Wounded Warrior camo, then that's it.
It looks like a normal South Carolina helmet, though. You think from looking at it?
Yes. It's not digital camo,
Right,
like
right,
what you
right.
think of when you think digital camo. But it is a digital sort of pattern that is a replica of what they wore against Auburn in 2011.
Okay. No autographs?
No autographs.
Okay.
Just plain.
Mini helmet. If it were a actual size, I'd say it'd be worth something. I really would. But mini helmet, I'm going to go $45.
You're a little low, but if you
low?
offered that,
Think
he
I
might
can get
take
him to
it.
bite?
He might take it.
Kane guesses 20. He's low.
You're low. You're low on that, Kane.
So at 55.
You have a better chance of him taking that. Actual listed price, $65. Not a bad looking little item.
I think that might be a touch high. A touch high.
Yeah.
65 Gamecock fans, would you pay $65 for a mini helmet? I don't
It's
know.
also for a game that was played 14 years ago. Like if you could go get that autographed by 1 or 2 players that were on the team at the time,
That's a long time,
then
right?
you got a valuable item there.
Okay.
That's a little pricey.
Texter from the 978 says, Cole, can you take a few minutes to explain the South Carolina High School League ruling last week regarding the one-time transfer rule that passed tomorrow? How about tomorrow? You're right. We didn't get to that last week because of March Madness, but very big news. We'll get to that tomorrow. Texter, thank you for sending that in. Diesel, I have one for you. Mm-hmm. We'll keep it in state. This is a Sammy Watkins autographed Clemson photo. So it's a photo of Clemson's Sammy Watkins and looks like a fellow receiver congratulating him in the end zone after a touchdown. It is autographed by Sammy himself in good condition. And this one's just north of where we are. Sammy Watkins autographed Clemson photo for how much?
How big is the photo? 8x10?
It looks it's sitting against the wall, and the top of the photo is the same height as the outlet, like the electrical outlet.
So yeah, it's probably about
10 to 12 inches.
Size of a sheet of notebook paper.
Yep, something like that.
Okay, Sammy Watkins autograph photo. I'm gonna say $30. 30 because it's a small photo. I assume it's framed.
Dead on the money.
How about that?
Dead on the money on the Marketplace Monday. How about that?
$30.
Did you look?
No, I haven't
you,
seen this one.
Wow,
I haven't seen this one. You offer 25, you probably get it for 25.
Yeah, maybe 20.
All right, Cole. Here we go. I like to try to find some sort of off kilter items here. This is listed as quote a rare 1981 Clemson Legends poster. It's 25 inches by 18 inches, so full poster size.
Okay.
In excellent condition, not framed. It features a drawing of the hill at Clemson's Memorial Stadium with the images of Frank Howard, Danny Ford, Steve Fuller, Perry Tuttle, Jeff Stockstill, Jeff Davis, and Jerry Butler.
That's cool.
On top of this background. Again, it's not a photo. This is an artist rendering of all the key important players and coaches who were on the 81 championship team.
I like that. Sounds like a cool lot. 81 championship.
Yep. 25 by 18, so it's a fairly large poster.
Yeah, that is pretty. I'm going to say it's more than $100. Would I be right there?
You'd be high on that one. They would definitely take that off.
No way. For a champion? Okay, so I'm going to go down to 65 then.
You're still a little high. $50.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
It's not autographed by anybody.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
if you could somehow, maybe go to what's the furniture store up the road here that Danny Ford's always advertising?
Yeah.
You can maybe if you go see
Unclaimed?
Danny over there, maybe he would maybe he'd sign it for you.
No, I think you're right. That's
a deal.
That sounds good. All right, my last one for you. Nolan Ryan, 1978 Topps autographed signed card, Angels 78 Hall of Fame edition, has Nolan Ryan, the stats on the back. It is autographed as well. California Angels. We're going back a little bit. Again, Hall of Fame edition. This is a cool find here if you're a baseball junkie.
Is Nolan Ryan still alive? Yeah, he's still alive.
I think
right?
so.
I'm going to say this autographed Nolan Ryan card is listed at $175.
A little high. Well, I'd say a little high. You're a good bit high.
$100.
120.
Okay.
120. Not bad.
Kane says somebody got that helmet from a claw machine. The Gamecock helmet. It's rude.
I like the shots there, Kane. I like it.
And last one, Cole. This one's a piece of history.
I didn't know where you were going with that. Piece of
2 seats from Little John Coliseum, the 2015 stadium remodel. This person got 3 sets of 2 chairs, and they are matching side by side, like seat 9 and 10, whatever the other ones are. Purple stadium seats, polka dotted with orange tiger paws. The listing says they have been stored indoors the entire time. They have 3 sets, and this price is for 1 set.
So 2 chairs.
2 chairs.
Be cool to have in the studio
Stadium
somewhere.
seats. They are currently disassembled, but they just got to be bolted back together. It's
That's
like
an
cushioned,
interesting find.
purple
It's
purple
cushioned?
material, cushioned
Wow.
seats, not plastic.
I'm gonna say $150.
You're way low.
Oh God. $450.
You're getting close now. $500 recently reduced from $1,000.
1,000.
Who's gonna pay $1,000 for
some
2
chairs?
Maybe if they won a national title the year they renovated the stadium. But come on.
500 is still a little steep. To me, it is. All right, we will take our first look at the Sweet 16 matchups happening later this week. Tolos, your first chance to react to the Sweet 16 matchups next. matchups are set. We will have to, as one of the Tolos said a few minutes ago, during hour number 1, wait a few days after the madness, and then we will get the Sweet 16 beginning Thursday, March 27th. We will have 4 games on Thursday and 4 on Friday. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. We are going to take a look at the games happening in the Sweet 16 on Thursday and Friday to set the table for your weekend, your early weekend that begins on Thursday, because it'll be a great day for college basketball beginning at 7:09 p.m. But first, I want to remind you, Tolos, that you know how sometimes, Diesel, you look at your calendar and you're like, oh, crap, tomorrow's so-and-so's birthday, right? Hadn't gotten him anything yet. I don't know if you've ever done that with your wife or not, but hopefully not.
No, I have alerts set on my phone a month before.
That's smart.
You got to set, because I'm terrible at remembering dates. I'm not going to remember it at the time of the event. I got to put in those extra alerts.
That's smart of you to do so, and I hope the Tolos have done the same thing because tomorrow, you know what tomorrow is our 1-year anniversary. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
How about that? 1 year of Wire to Wire.
That? And we're going to celebrate it by going to hang out at the brand new Spartanburger Stadium tomorrow morning.
That's right. We have not gotten kicked off of the airwaves in 1 year. We have not been fired in 1 year. Knock on wood, right? We haven't gotten any FCC violations or reports in 1 year. So
we have gotten a few talkings to, though.
Good, yeah, but you got to get some talkings too.
Yeah, you're not doing your job if you don't get called into your boss's office every now and again.
you've got to push the envelope every now and then. You have to. It's just part of it. It's in your contract. However, tomorrow, Tolos, I hope you have your gifts prepared for the 1 year anniversary of Wire to Wire. I mean, I don't know what kind of gifts the Tolos get, the 2 radio hosts who have been on the air for a year together tomorrow, but I think we could have some good gifts brought.
So the traditional 1 year wedding anniversary gift is paper. So
Money?
you get somebody. Well, it can be money.
Wow.
I'm just Googling like what are 1 year anniversary gifts.
I like green paper,
and I'm seeing those kind of chintzy. Here's our wedding song, like made into a poster.
Think we'll get anybody call in and sing. Like Happy Anniversary?
I guess you could. Is there a happy anniversary song?
Happy anniversary to you. Like happy birthday, I guess, right? Just like happy birthday.
I will only accept it from Tom in Somerville.
What about Rick and Greer? I bet Rick and Greer can sing.
Those two are at odds right now, though.
They are.
Those two are. They were at each other's throats.
We might be able to break out some vocals. We never know. We never know. Texter from the 344 says, Cole doing his best to jinx y'all now that he said no FCC violation. That's why I knocked on wood, Texter. Knocking on wood. Texter says, my wife got me a roll of toilet paper on our 1 year, and it says, I love the bleep out of you. That is really classy. I like that.
My brother-in-law once for Christmas, and he's a little bit of a prankster. He got me a roll of toilet paper that the outside has Chuck Norris's face printed on it. This was like, it was years ago when all the Chuck Norris jokes were everywhere.
Sure.
And it said on the toilet paper, this is Chuck Norris toilet paper. It's rough. It's tough. It don't take no bleep off anybody.
Oh, wow. I like that.
But that's the opposite of what you want your toilet paper to do. You want it to take the bleep off of you.
Yeah, you want it to be soft.
Yeah.
There's nowhere worse than going into a public restroom and toilet paper is just the crappy
That's the one thing I don't skimp on. I don't believe on skimping on bacon.
No, you can't.
You got to get good bacon. You got to get good toilet paper.
Yeah, you got to have good, the thick kind, the really thick kind.
Charmin Ultra Soft. Let's be real.
Yep. All right, Tolos. The Sweet 16, the table is set for the Sweet 16 that begins on Thursday. I want to let you Tolos know that 2 hours from right now at 6 o'clock, we will be redoing our brackets. With the current teams, 16 teams, you need to redo. You need a mulligan.
Mine's in rough shape.
You need a mulligan. We will have a redo of the current 16 at 6 p.m. That's what we'll do. So make sure you set your timer, your alarm, your brain to interact at 6 o'clock because we're going to be redoing the brackets with the Sweet 16, the 16 teams remaining. But Diesel, when you and I go off of air Thursday at 7 o'clock, 9 minutes will go by. And then after that 9 minutes goes by, we will have BYU Alabama.
Eli Gold.
Alabama is a 5.5-point favorite over BYU.
You have BYU all the way in your Final Four, right? No, even the finals. For the national championship game. Do you still believe that highly?
I'm telling you, man,
BYU,
they're phenomenal. They really are. Now, Bama's going to be a tremendous test for BYU because Bama's so athletic defensively. They're really going to test BYU. However, I'm riding high, man. BYU, Alabama, I cannot wait for that game. That one, to me, seems like it could be the best game of the night. I know it probably won't end up being, but it could be. And then at 7:39, Maryland, 27-8, the 4 seed. Diesel takes on the 1 seed, Florida Gators. Florida favored by, want to guess?
Florida favored by 4.5.
6.5.
6.5.
That game in San Francisco. And then the second game taking place in Newark, New Jersey at 9:39, Arizona versus Duke. That game is in favor of Duke by 8.5.
The fact is, everyone loses in that game because you have to go to Newark.
That's true.
Ugh.
I flew out of Newark one time.
How was it?
I didn't really see much other than felt the cold air, and that was pretty much it. And then 10 o'clock, 10:09, Arkansas and Texas Tech. That one, come on now. I know you've got to stay up late, but Texas Tech's good. Arkansas is playing well. I think Thursday is going to be hard to beat. I don't know if Arizona will be able to give Duke that much of a game, but I cannot wait for Thursday's matchups, Diesel.
Is this an old Big 8 matchup? Was Texas Tech in the Big 8 way back
might
in the
have
day?
been. Might have been.
When Arkansas was still there?
Might have been. That's a good question.
It's another one of those matchups that should happen more often because they're not that far from each other.
Yep. So that's the Thursday games. If you had to rank Tolos, Diesel, the games that you look forward to the most on Thursday, out of the 4, again, you have BYU, Bama at 7:09, Maryland, Florida at 7:39, Arizona, Duke at 9:39, and then 10:09, Arkansas, Texas Tech. I would put BYU, Bama 1. Who would you have at 1 in terms of the game that you're most intrigued in, the one that moves the meter for you the most?
Probably BYU, Alabama 1.
Okay, I like that.
Arkansas, Texas Tech 2, just because Cal's in it and he's got a 10 seed in the Sweet 16. I think those are probably going to be the 2 closest matchups. I think Florida is probably going to handle Maryland fairly easily, even though they struggled in the previous matchup. And I think Duke is going to absolutely blow the doors off Arizona.
So I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you because BYU, Bama would be 1 for me. Arkansas Tech is 2. Maryland, Florida's 3. Arizona, Duke's 4. And that's exactly right. That's exactly it. I think that's the order. I'm fascinated by BYU, Bama. 5.5-point spread. Total set at 175.5. That should be a lot of fun. Those are the 4 on Thursday. Then on Friday, Diesel, we turn the page, and we do it again on Friday to see who is going to go to the Elite 8. All right, Ole Miss and Michigan State, 7:09. Ole Miss, the 6, Michigan State, the 2. Michigan State is favored by 2.5. 7:39, Kentucky, Tennessee. Again, SEC matchup one more time for you. 9:39, Michigan, Auburn. Should be a fun one. And then at 10:09, Purdue takes on Houston. Instant reaction, more excited about Thursday's games or Friday's games?
Oh, man.
I say Thursday.
Probably, yeah. I mean, this Kentucky-Tennessee is must-watch TV. You can't miss that game. That is ridiculous.
That's the best one of the night, right?
By far, I think. I really like this Michigan-Auburn game at 9:39. Again, hoping for the sake of my bracket that Michigan carries that. You know they scored like 56 points in the second half?
Yeah, you know
of their last game?
Diesel, I can't figure that team out. Michigan, man, like, they were not overwhelming to watch during the regular season. I watched them like 3 or 4 times. They were in some primetime slots. And then all of a sudden, conference tournament comes around. They win the conference. And lo and behold, they're playing really well.
It's the definition of getting hot at the right time.
It 100% is. Could Michigan – this one's fascinating. I agree with the texter or whoever it was earlier in the show that said they think Auburn's gettable. I do agree. I do think Auburn's gettable. Is Michigan, though, the team that gets them? I don't know. Auburn's favored by 8.5.
Well, they got a blueprint. They got a blueprint to shut down Janai Broom now.
Yeah.
Because he was shut down in their matchup against Creighton.
Tolos at 844 fan phone, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line. Also, for those 70 watching on the stream, where you can watch the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Yes or no, is Michigan the team to take down Auburn? Because a lot of people, including Rob Brown, right, has Auburn winning it all, cutting down the nets. Diesel, you and I both have the Gators. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just think when you look at Auburn making it to the Elite Eight in the Final Four, I like their path. And I said that last week in terms of liking their path. I think their path's favorable. I think they get by Michigan. I really do. And again, I may change my mind between now and Friday, but initially thinking, I think Auburn, the number 1 overall seed, is going to get by Michigan. I do think it's close. I will tell you, instant reaction, I like the 8.5 a lot. Like in terms of taking Michigan in the points, same thing I did yesterday. I took somebody was favored by 9.5. It was UConn. UConn was 9.5-point underdogs to Florida. And I was like, 9.5 is way too many points. So I like, in the same breath, I like Michigan plus 8.5.
Cole, there are 7 SEC teams left in this tournament. 2 of them will play each other in Kentucky, Tennessee. Out of the 8 matchups, 6 of them will feature at least one SEC team.
Yeah.
The question I have for you and for the Tolos, participate. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. You can text in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line or comment on the stream. How many SEC teams will lose in the round of 16, in the Sweet 16? There has to be at least one because Tennessee, Kentucky play each other. How many SEC teams go down out of the 5 matchups?
Yeah.
It could be up to 5.
By the way, Kane says no, Auburn wins. And in terms of asking if Michigan can take down Auburn, T-Swizzle on the YouTube stream says, y'all seen where the 3 guys from FAU all in the Sweet 16? That's wild. I did see that on different teams.
Sorry, I said that wrong. 6. There could be up to 6 SEC losses. There has to be at least one because 2 SEC teams play each other.
Okay.
How many SEC losses where there'll be?
How many SEC losses?
In the round of 16.
Oh, boy. All right, let's start with Thursday. You know, I picked BYU to make a run.
Yeah?
I think BYU does make a run. I think they beat Bama. I'm telling you, I know it's an outlandish pick. That is an outlandish pick. I think that spread should be more than 5.5. So I'm going to go 1.
Well, Alabama really hasn't been tested in the tournament to this point. I mean, they beat Robert Morris by 9.
And that you're right.
And they beat up on St. Mary's by 14.
That's a good point. Good point. I like that.
So they haven't played what most would consider an elite team to this point.
Yeah, no, they have not. They've had a good draw, right?
They've had a good draw.
A very good draw. BYU, I think BYU, when you look at this matchup with Bama and BYU, what I think is intriguing about it is BYU will stretch them. Now, I said it a minute ago, Bama's defense is good. They've got players who really do understand how to play team defense. However, BYU, the way they play and the pace at which they play, it is SEC-like pace. I think they match up great against Alabama. I know Bama's favored by 5.5 points. I just think BYU offensively is hot. They scored 91. I think they're the better team offensively. Now, Bama's defense, I think, will have a little bit of say when it comes to how many points BYU scored. I don't think they scored 91 on Bama. So I'm going to go 1 in Bama. Florida's not going to lose to Maryland. Mm-hmm. And then that's the only other. Oh, no. There's one more that night. Arkansas,
Texas Tech.
Oh. I think the road comes to an end for Cal here. Don't you? Texas Tech's really good.
I'm going 3 overall.
So you're going – how many on Thursday are you going, though?
I'm
SEC
going with,
losses.
I'm going with 1 on Thursday.
Just Arkansas?
Just Arkansas.
Okay. And you know what? You'll probably be right, but I am going a little outlandish picking BYU over Bama. So I'm going to go 2 on Thursday in terms of SEC losses. Bama will lose on Thursday. Arkansas will lose on Thursday. Now, Friday, somebody has to lose Kentucky, Tennessee, right?
Yep.
Ole Miss, Michigan State. You have that one as a loss or no?
I do. I have Michigan State knocking off the not running Rebels, the sitting Rebels.
You know, I take that back, man. This might be the game of the weekend. Tom Izzo, Chris Beard. I don't know. This one's going to be tough in Atlanta.
I mean, Ole Miss has been in – they were in a scrap with UNC.
Yeah, they were.
We watched the round of 64. They were in a scrap. They got up big. So they were playing real well in the first half of that game, and then they fell apart in the second half, let UNC back in. But then they recovered just in time.
Right now, I lean Michigan State as well. That's who you have winning. You have Michigan State.
Yeah. I do have Michigan State winning this game.
Yeah, I lean Michigan State. I lean Tennessee. By the way, I picked this matchup right, Kentucky-Tennessee. I did have both of those teams getting there. I'm leaning Tennessee on that one. Michigan-Auburn's the only other SEC or only other game involving an SEC team, Diesel. I'm picking Auburn close right now. So I'm saying 1 loss on Friday for the SEC and 2 on Thursday. So give me 3 overall. Is that what you had?
That's what I had as well.
But you had 1 on
I had Arkansas
Thursday.
losing. I have Arkansas and Ole Miss losing, and then I have Tennessee making it all the way to the Final Four. So
me too,
I got them knocking off Kentucky.
That'd be interesting, man. The SEC, though, they've shown up. They really have. All right, we will take a quick break. On the other side, we'll be joined by Rocco Miller. Rocco Miller, college hoops bracketologist and analyst. Fantastic interview coming your way next.
We've had it, our 4 epic days of March Madness to kick things off. Now people get to take a little bit of a breather. You know, you get to rest a little bit, catch up on talking to your kids and talking to your wife. And then we're back in on Thursday and Friday. To talk about all of it, we bring on a brand new guest here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, Rocco Miller, college hoops bracketologist and analyst. Find him on his website, bracketeer.org, and on Twitter at Rocco Miller 8. Rocco, thanks for joining us here on the show for the very first time. We ran some polling on our Twitter page over the weekend where 77% of our respondents said that the first and second round games were either very boring or somewhat in the middle. In the first round games, less than half of the games were close, 10 points or less, and exactly half were close in the second round. Is this an it is what it is situation with regards to both the audience polling and the tightness of games, or do you think there's something that could or should be done to tighten up games in the NCAA tournament?
You know, it's an impossible problem to put into one vacuum. I think there's a lot of components at play at the same time that kind of led to it playing out this way this year. Now, with the exception of, you know, you had High Point, who's not far from your area. I thought they played really well against Purdue. Didn't get a very good whistle, we'll be honest. So that might be one of those factors in play sometimes when you're a Cinderella team and the big business points towards helping these bigger schools advance if possible. I guess that's a theory that may be out there, especially if you watch UC San Diego and Michigan. That game certainly felt like 5-on-8, and the Tritons still almost pulled off the upset. But I think in general, like, this is just where we are in college sports in 2025. I mean, there's 2 leagues because of football that have a surplus of resources that are far different than I think the rest of the leagues. In basketball, you know, we were up until, you know, even just a year ago, we were wrapping up a decade where the Big 12 was by far the dominant league. And part of that was because they were a smaller league. They had 10 schools for most of that decade, and they consolidated to a point where, you know, their last place team would be still a top 75 level team. They had big brands like Kansas. Baylor had their best run ever. Iowa State made a huge run up. Kansas State had some great teams in there. They made the Elite Eight just 2 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. And so now the Big 12 is still a great league, but they're also up to 16 members. The SEC expanded, and the Big 10, of course, expanded as well. And with their resources, what it's done is you could be like the 10th or 11th best player in those leagues, especially the SEC and the Big 10, and you're making more in NIL than the best player for a lot of these really good mid-major leagues. Like, if you're playing for a Missouri Valley team and you're the best player on your team, you're probably still making less than the 11th best guy at Arkansas. And, you know, that's a different dynamic than just 2 years ago. As NIL has become prevalent for everybody, obviously it was out there a couple of years ago, but everybody's focused now on fundraising. You have GMs at places in the Big Ten and the SEC and now kind of going everywhere, but really focused on that part of it. And now you can stack your roster with guys that may not even see the floor that would be studs at mid-major programs. But even for them personally, it might make sense to go be a part of that program, not only for the money, but develop their game, get the best training, coaching, et cetera. And now it's almost like you're looking at so many different levels of you know, talent and overall skill. And it's kind of shown its ugly face here this year.
Rocco, it's really interesting when you look at the SEC because, by the way, it's Cole here. I appreciate you hopping on with us. You brought up the SEC having more resources. And, you know, you could argue that the SEC's had more resources for several years now, but has the portal and NIL, in your mind, been that significant that the SEC could go from, I mean, let's be honest, it was you know, Kentucky and LSU every now and then with Ben Simmons, but now they're at the top of the game. So the resources obviously are a factor, but would you say that the NIL and the portal have really put them over the top?
Yeah, I mean, it's been trending this way in the SEC for about 6-7 years. You know, Bruce Pearl building up Auburn, Nate Oates getting hired at Alabama, even though Musselman kind of crashed and burned at Arkansas, he had a great 3-year run where they made the Elite Eight every year. So the collection of coaches in the SEC, I would say the last 6 years, has already been number one. And now the rest of the program, whether it's development and roster continuity, keeping those players together. You see so many guys back at Alabama this year, for example. You see what Auburn brought back with Janai Broom and building that core and keeping a lot of that core together from last year. You can almost get the best of every world now at the SEC level because you can maintain and retain the best talent. The one and done era really hurt the Kentuckys and the LSUs, at least to a degree, to the point where they had to go out and figure out their roster next year. Now you have the ability to, if a guy has more eligibility and he's not a first rounder next year, it makes sense for him to come back. And Hunter Dickinson did that at Kansas. So it's not just the SEC, but it's that upper echelon, the has-beens in college basketball, plus the resources of the SEC and the Big Ten that make that possible. What we used to see not that long ago, especially like the Florida Atlantic team from 2023, which was tremendous, was you could get teams like that at the mid-major level to stick together for another year and just want to play for a great coach. And it wasn't about the money. It was more just about the opportunity to build and grow skill. But now you can find that all over college basketball at the highest levels. Some of the best mid-major coaches from just a couple of years ago are all in Power 5. The best mid-major coaches this year are already joining Power 5. Ben McCollum, Drake's coach, is now the Iowa coach. Nico Medved got knocked out at the buzzer yesterday as Colorado State's coach. This morning, he's the Minnesota coach. So it's everybody's doing it. It's not a one-size-fits-all problem. And the NCAA itself is very interested in having these power programs kind of run the show because that keeps the leagues themselves, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, happy to be part of the NCAA. If the NCAA started making rulings or games weren't officiated very well for those power teams, there could be more and more threats for leagues like the SEC to secede the NCAA and start their own association. So there's all these different powers at play at the same exact time, and really none of it's benefiting leagues that are outside of those top three leagues.
Rocco, how much did it shock you? And we got the news here, in the last hour or two. Locally, just down the road from us is Clemson, a team that everybody had high expectations to make a run. Obviously, they have the egg on their face of McNeese State, but Chauncey Wiggins and Dell Jones, two guys that could have and should have been studs for Clemson next year, both enter the transfer portal. Basically, everybody else is a senior and graduating. Brad Brownell's going to have to start over from scratch, essentially. What were your initial thoughts when you started hearing that news come out?
Right, yeah, it's just another example, right? I think nowadays, if you're a player, and especially if you're not playing, and again, Clemson's been tremendous under Brownell the last couple of years. I had the luxury of being in Los Angeles last year for your 2 games down there in that run to the Elite Eight. It was great to be around them and get to know everybody better. But yeah, I think he'll figure it out for sure. But I think it just speaks to the larger tiers of college sports and Clemson's a powerful place. Like, you have good resources there. He's established a consistent program. Certainly outside of Duke and Carolina, Clemson and Louisville are right there as 3A and 3B in the league in terms of best places to go and play. And Clemson's worked their way up to that status. Amazing Little John Coliseum atmosphere, et cetera, but it just shows you the resources at the top are just that much different to where those two particular players, if they get offered spots, whether it's at, it doesn't matter, like name your favorite SEC team, if they can go be starters at Tennessee next year, the difference in money might be big enough to where they do that. And plus you see a league like the SEC this year get 14 teams in, which I didn't personally agree with. I thought 12 to 13 was more than enough. But regardless, you get to go play in a league like that. You have everybody watching you at the next level, whether it's the NBA, the G League, 2-way contract, overseas, whatever your level is as an individual. You want to play against the best. That's just the nature of being a competitor. And I think the ACC this year, obviously there was just a lot of games that were hold and serve type of games. There wasn't really a big challenge for Clemson. And if the money's that much different and the competition's that much greater on a night-to-night basis, and the SEC wants you or the Big Ten wants you, like that's gonna pull guys even from the ACC, which is, it's a much different world than it was just a few years ago.
Hey, Rocco, you spoke about Clemson just in that last answer, but from a national perspective, we're just, like Diesel said, a few minutes down the road from Clemson. As you can imagine,
Right.
Thursday when they lost, it was all hell broke loose. But from a national perspective, is Brad Brownell looked at as one of the top coaches in the game? And then I guess the second part of that question is, was the loss to McNeese really that big of an upset to the national audience?
Yeah, well, I first of all, Brad Brownell's been Mr. Hot Seat for over a decade, and some of that speaks to how important basketball is at Clemson. If you have pressure, sometimes that's not a bad thing. It just means people care a lot. So I think that's not a bad thing at all. But I think Brad Brownell, even back at his Wright State time, like just an amazing in-game coach. He's really good at adjustments. He's really good at the strategy of the game. He's really good at drawing up plays, X's and O's. I love all that stuff about him. He's figured out how to build a staff that helps him, with better recruiting, better retainment of players, obviously retraining the guys that you had from last year, set up the expectations for this year. And by and large, it was a successful year, 27-6 before the tournament started. Definitely a lot of good memories from the year, I'm sure. Obviously, the sour taste is not good, starting as cold as they did against McNeese. That surprised me as well, but it's a 5-12 game, and we see 12-5s happen all the time. We saw, the 12-5s went 2-2 this year. Colorado State also beating Memphis, so that's always possible. McNeese was not your typical mid-major team at all. They had a whole Power 5 level of starters, thanks to Will Wade, thanks to an increase of funding at their level, and they actually, in my opinion, went 7 deep with high major talent. I think the biggest problem was they didn't have a big man, and Purdue was smarter a little bit on their game plan to expose that. But I just think overall, what Brownell was able to do these last couple of years, and just kind of every time his back's against the wall, him and the team respond. I think there's a lot of respect for him nationally. Now, I think where we're going from here is you have to have the ability, kind of what Dusty May built at Michigan, I guess is a good example here in year one. Was he understood that he can do all those things, kind of like what Brownell does in terms of game planning, in-game adjustments, X's and O's, all those great basketball things. But he realized he needed to go get a guy that can recruit, get a guy that can run NIL like a GM. So Michigan hired a GM. He hired an offensive guru, a defensive guru. So that Michigan staff now, and this is just an example of what a lot of the top programs are doing and how they've shifted to get around NIL and ensure success, basically running it like an NBA type of operation. You need somebody strong in all of those areas. It's not, at this point, Brownell or Dusty May, they're basically CEOs now. This is a top-down operation, and you need guys on your staff that can do all those things well, and if you have any holes, you'll be exposed. So that will be his test now, because I think in the past, Brownell and his staff did a great job basketball-wise and did enough to continue to be consistent, but now this is a whole operation. It's almost like running an organization in the pros.
Joined live by bracketologist Rocco Miller at Rocco Miller 8 on Twitter. X is where you can find him. We invite all of our Tolos to go give him a follow, help him reach that goal of 15,000 Twitter followers. Alabama on a little bit of shaky ground in round one against Robert Morris. Didn't come out and play the way that they should have, and Robert Morris, to their credit, played a really good basketball game. And they seem to have squared that away in round two, taking care of their round two opponent fairly easily. Is there a team so far, maybe outside of Alabama, that you can point to that's still in it, but has kind of been playing with fire? Hasn't been playing their best ball, but they have been advancing?
That's a good question there. I think, you can look at, Michigan maybe. I guess they really turned it around. In that Texas A&M game, they were down pretty big, came back and rolled down the stretch. Now, again, they're a 5 seed, so I think them getting to the Sweet 16 is an accomplishment by itself. But certainly had their tests throughout those moments. Obviously, Maryland. I think Maryland in that Colorado State game was not expecting to get punched in the mouth the way they did I don't think there's ever a ref in any game this year that would call that a travel by Derek Queen. Of course, that's some of the pushback online, but they drew up a great play, got the win at the buzzer. But I think Maryland was one where they came in really hot to the tournament. I think that game might have woke them up. So they play Florida next. That will be fascinating. Michigan State as well. Like Michigan State came in cruising. Didn't play great at the Big Ten tournament, but that didn't really matter. They were locked into a 2 seed. Certainly got punched early against New Mexico, but really responded in the second half and just kind of didn't do anything overly impressive. In fact, Richardson didn't even play that well in that game. But I thought the Spartans, of course, did just enough to get by. But I think everybody else, it's hard to find a perfect fit to your question because I think everybody at the top was really impressive. Florida, of course, just getting by UConn, but I think that's more of a credit to Danny Hurley and having a great game plan to slow that pace down, which is how UConn wants to play anyway. Florida was really rattled for a good chunk of the end of the first half, start of the second half, and they found that next gear, though, just in time with 6 minutes to go and made their move. But I think outside of that, there isn't really much to point to. Duke was extremely dominant. Houston, even though they won close against the tough Gonzaga team, they controlled that game. I was impressed by that. Texas Tech being able to beat Drake the way they did was beyond impressive. I did not think that was going to happen. So really impressed by them. I know there's other examples. Kentucky were very impressive against Illinois. So yeah, I don't know if there's a perfect answer to your question.
Rocco, my last question for you. What'd you make of Patino versus Cal on Saturday? Obviously, a team that loses their first 5 conference games of the season like Arkansas did. You wouldn't expect them to be in the Sweet 16, but here they are. You fast forward a few months later, just goes to show, how long the season is and Arkansas playing the right ball at the right time.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, for St. John's, that's a rough matchup because Arkansas, of course, had a Jekyll and Hyde season. Some of that due to injuries. Really figured it out late. They did just enough to get in. But matchup-wise, this Arkansas roster wasn't cheap by any means. There's a ton of talent. They still aren't 100% healthy. Obviously, Thiero's out, but they were able to kind of take St. John's favorite things to do away from them. This is a game where the rebounding was almost near even, which is hard to do against St. John's because they are relentless on the rebounds. The Red Storm still out-rebounded the Hogs by 6, but that was close enough to kind of neutralize that margin. Obviously, we knew coming into the tournament St. John's was a rough shooting team, but for R.J. Luis, their all-Big East star, he mentally just did not look the same, let's just say. And some of that, you got to give credit to Arkansas. They came out and they were the aggressors early in that matchup. Luis ends up shooting 3 for 17. His sidekick, Aaron Scott, goes 1 for 10. And besides Zuby Ejiofor, who played relentlessly and amazingly for St. John's, I think Arkansas was able to basically destabilize everything St. John's prefers to do, which is own the paint, own the interior, defense, offense, control the pace, outwork you physically. One of the things I've said about St. John's all year was how good their fitness was, just nonstop running up and down. They just wear you out. Well, Arkansas's got the athletes to keep up. So once you start neutralizing those things, then what does St. John's have? Certainly not outside shooting. And I think they found themselves in a rough moment with 4 minutes to go and figuring out how they're going to generate key baskets, and they just couldn't do that. Credit to Calipari and Arkansas for not only staying the course in this pod in Providence, but all season long, just figuring out that issue with Boogie Fland and John L. Davis. Now they're playing together. A lot of people didn't think that was possible. They figured it out, and they earned the win.
Rocco, usually in the NCAA tournament, we get a handful of stars that emerge. Sometimes it's guys like Jahani Broome, who everybody expects to be really good, shows that he is really good. But we always get a couple of stars emerging out of the NCAA tournament, outside of maybe Amir Khan, the assistant at McNeese State, who just emerged as a swag king. Is there somebody who you can point at and say, here's a relatively unknown player that has just played out of his mind through the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, I on the first day, I definitely like Jemiah Neal of Creighton. He went absolutely bonkers against Louisville to knock them out. And he was kind of the forgotten man during a lot of the previews. And that was the first game of the tournament. 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. He played fairly well against Auburn as well. Obviously, they were overmatched in that game. But he was the guy that really stood out on day one. I think outside of that, some of the guys I look at are a little different because I'm looking for different hustle stats. I'm a big hustle stats guy. But at Alabama, like Cliff Omaruri was just so dominant in the paint against a really good St. Mary's front line. Between him and Mohamed Diabite, he's won 14 what they call hard hat awards. Again, this isn't going to get all the fans fired up in terms of sexy points and rebounds. But doing the little things, getting stops, blocking shots, it's a possession-by-possession sport in the NCAA tournament, and guys like that are huge difference makers. And I think you could also look at like a Trey Holloman played pretty well for Michigan State yesterday. Sean Padula of Ole Miss, obviously the guy you know very well from all of his time at Virginia Tech, man, he really stepped up against North Carolina. And then he followed that up with 20 more against Iowa State in a game that most people would have picked the Cyclones, I believe. So Sean Padula might be the best answer to your question.
Rocco, great stuff, man. We really appreciate you taking some time to hop on with us. It was fantastic, and we will talk to you soon, my man.
Anytime, fellas. Enjoy the action. Thank you. Absolutely.
Appreciate you as well. As Diesel said, give him a follow on Twitter, on X, at Rocco Miller 8. That's ROCCO Miller 8. Tolos, let him know you heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. Fantastic stuff from Rocco. We, on the other side, will take a look at what South Carolina, the Lady Gamecocks, did over the weekend in punching their ticket to the Sweet 16. That is next. Diesel, it was, what's the old saying? Close but no cigar. Is that right?
Yeah. Have you ever smoked a cigar?
Yeah, with you. God.
You did?
Diesel, this shows how much you pay attention
When
to me.
did we do that?
I'm just, you've upset me. I can't believe you don't remember. At Rob Brown's house.
We did?
Yes.
Oh, I guess we did.
Masters last year, remember?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Remember that? Is it coming back to you
You're the
now?
one who needed help lighting it.
No, that's not true. Is it coming back to you? Close. The Gamecocks, the Lady Gamecocks yesterday, the game got close, but Indiana ultimately could not pull it out. I'm talking really, really close. I watched this one. It was a good one. South Carolina, as they do, for whatever reason, a good bit during the season, started slow. The Lady Gamecocks started slow yesterday, let Indiana hang around. Indiana took a lead, but South Carolina does what South Carolina does so often, and at the right time, knows when to turn it on. The Gamecocks over Indiana 64-53 yesterday to advance to punch their ticket to the Sweet 16. It was a good day for the Lady Gamecocks bench, as it always is. It seems like the bench always has more than the starting five. Chloe Kitts, 10 points. Anaya Fagan, 10 points. Bree Hall with 11. And everybody on the bench pretty much gave production. Diesel, I've said it, UCLA and UConn scare me. I don't think South Carolina hangs the banner again this year. But in a year where we've talked about why the Gamecocks aren't the same, this team's really, really good still.
Well, one thing that does concern me is that South Carolina is capable of having a 26-point third quarter in that game, and that ultimately ended up being the deciding factor because they did trade 13 points for 13 points with Indiana in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
If your roster is as stacked and loaded as South Carolina's roster is, and it is as stacked and loaded as any other roster can possibly be in women's college basketball, why do you have a 9-point first quarter and a 26-point third quarter?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I guess I'd have to go back and watch the game. Credit goes to Indiana and the defensive scheme they had coming out of the gate really confused South Carolina because in the second quarter they picked up the scoring. Third quarter they really picked up. Obviously they had a halftime break there to go in and make some coaching adjustments.
Yeah, they're a good team. Indiana is.
But I mean, when you have massive swings, like 15-point swings from quarter to quarter, when your roster is that good, that's one of those things that you scratch your head at. You know, and it's a good thing to be able to scratch your head at, especially when they're winning the game comfortably by 11 points in the round of 32.
You know, I've said this before, and this sounds outlandish to say, Diesel, but I'm going to say it. You know how sometimes you look at a team with so much talent, and you wonder why one player never gets going? Mm-hmm. You wonder why Malaysia Fulwiley never really gets going. She only had 3 points yesterday. I really do think this is the case with South Carolina this year. I think they're so talented that hero ball is not played enough. I think Malaysia Fulwiley, she doesn't get enough playing time in my mind. I think sometimes hero ball can be a good thing.
They got all these claws and these fangs, and they don't know how to kill the bunny.
They're just so deep, man.
On the other side of the break, Cole, it is time for you Tolos to get off your butts and pick up your phones. Call us 844-326-3663. Overreaction Monday. Anything you want to sound off at about what you saw this weekend in sports, here's your chance. Coming up next. Tolos, it is time to nut up or shut up, as they say. Here's your chance to get out your phones and dial 844-FAN-PHONE. That's phone spelled with an F. 844-326-3663. Yeah, we love it when you text into the show on the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line, but we want you to call us. We want to hear the sounds of your voices in this segment every Monday. It is your chance to overreact about anything you saw this weekend.
March Madness sucks.
Well,
that's it, right?
That's fine.
That's the overreaction.
I mean, that seems to be everyone's reaction to everything these days. Everything sucks.
It's no good.
It's easy to say that something sucks. It's harder to actually have a real opinion about something.
I know, man. I've enjoyed March Madness. I mean, I've enjoyed the games.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe those who don't know these head coaches and don't know the players, maybe they are upset because there hadn't been, fireworks. But if they're wanting a firework display, I don't know, get into politics or something. But it's basketball. It's been really good basketball, I've thought.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, Cole, no matter what it is, the best team is going to win each game. The best team is going to survive and advance. And, what would you rather have? Some artificial, made-up, contrived games, or would you rather see the best teams continue to advance and go compete for a national championship? But Tolos, 844-326-3663. We always start slow with these call-in segments, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's this flurry of activity. Don't wait. Get on the phone lines now.
It just takes one idiot saying something to make another, it's just a chain
Who is
reaction.
going to be that idiot? That's what I want to know. I'll be that idiot. I'll be your Huckleberry if you want to.
Nothing
Cole.
wrong with that.
I'll get things started for us.
Let's go.
So the Dodgers have played 2 games already this season. They did their run through Tokyo.
That's right.
Which was a phenomenal 2-game series. I watched one game. Shohei Ohtani came to bat. He belted one right over right center field. I think, if I recall correctly, it was a 3-run homer. But my wife and I were watching it. We were, I think, out at a restaurant or something. And she was like, why is this guy such a big deal? I was like, he just so happens to be the best player in the world right now. And he is looked at as probably being more skilled than Babe Ruth. Not probably. Yes. He is more skilled than Babe Ruth. Yeah. But, it'll take a lifetime of proving it before a lot of baseball fans will actually say it out loud that it is the truth here, Cole. But something that's got me a little jacked up right now when it comes to the LA Dodgers, and this isn't brand new news. We just got the news that this player is going to start on actual Major League Baseball opening day. Blake Snell, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, made his way to LA this offseason, Cole. And it drives me nuts that Major League Baseball is letting the Dodgers get away with deferring a gigantic part of Blake Snell's contract. So they already did it with Shohei, right? They're not paying him a ton of money now, but they are going to pay him a ton of money in the future. And they're doing the exact same thing with Blake Snell. And so what pisses me off about this, Cole, is that how are the other 26, 25, 24 teams supposed to be able to keep up with the 4 or 5 or 6 who are doing gymnastics to be able to shoehorn as much talent onto their roster as they can?
Good question.
This is, I think it's going to be bad for baseball. You're betting on the fact, if you're the Dodgers GM, that the money is going to be there 10 years from now, whenever it is you actually have to start paying these gigantic contracts. And you're betting that we're going to be able to essentially keep doing this in perpetuity and kind of almost never have to pay the guys who are actually on our roster right now. Yeah. I don't like it. It's dirty pool. I get that it's sort of within the rules, but it's really not within the rules. But Major League Baseball doesn't have the gabagools to call up the Dodgers and say, hey, knock that stuff off.
No, I'm with you. I think, unfortunately, they will have the money 10 years from now because of their rich history. Sure. I hate it. I mean, I really do. I hate it as much as anybody, especially being a Braves fan, but it's tough. I also, though, will give you 2 overreactions. Also, I said also not because you gave 2, but I'll give a baseball overreaction as well. Diesel, my overreaction on this Monday is not reacting to what happened this past weekend. My overreaction is reacting to what's about to happen. I think the Atlanta Braves are about to lose 7 games in a row to start the season. I repeat, I think the Atlanta Braves are going to lose 7 games in a row to start the season. A 4-game stint in San Diego, and then a 3-game stint in LA, the Dodgers, who you were just talking about. Name me a tougher opening 7-game stretch than the Atlanta Braves have, with several of their key starters, I mind you, not participating as of yet. I know Strider's looking good, and I know people are trending upwards, but they're not going to be there yet. I know I might be a little facetious saying 0-7. It really could be like 2-5. It's going to be tough, man. It is going to be tough for the Braves in those first couple of weeks because the Padres are good, the Dodgers are good, so I don't know. I need to be more optimistic as a Braves fan, but I struggle. I really do. I need to be more optimistic. But speaking of optimistic, Dewey is the first one up on this Overreaction Monday. Dewey, what are you overreacting to?
Well, first of all, I just got angry because I had to agree with both of y'all again. I'm getting tired of having to agree with y'all.
Yeah, that sucks.
But I do one thing I say about the Braves. 0-7, yes, but they're still going to make the playoffs.
Okay.
I got a decent feeling they're still going to make the playoffs. Should everyone stay healthy? But Austin Riley can't keep hitting his hand like he has. And they got other pieces too. But why in the world did they get Craig Kimbrell, who's like 80 years old, back?
Right.
Is beyond me. He ain't going to do nothing.
No, I'm with you there.
But and the Dodgers are a fraud. Shohei needs to go to jail. But anyways, I got one more overreaction. I don't know y'all aware of this, but this is your 1-year anniversary. And it's probably around this time.
Tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow. Well, I want to say no thank you for all the bad work y'all done. And y'all made the athletes suck even more than what they suck already, and y'all do a bad job, and I appreciate it.
So, Dewey, here's a little preview of something I want to do tomorrow, and I would love for you to kick this thing off. What is the worst take that you've heard either Cole or I have in the last year?
Y'all need to be fired. I have to think about that. It's a lot of them. It's about 100,000 of them.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
knew that was coming.
Yeah,
I knew you shouldn't have asked that, dude. He's going to say everything.
No, that's fair.
Thanks, Dewey.
And, I got one more.
Okay, one more.
I hope Tom is listening to this because he's probably going to talk about this. Paul Moore needs to be fired. They just got swept by another SEC opponent, Arkansas. It's going to be just like Lamar Parrish, and they're not going to win an SEC game this year, and they're not going to go to the postseason. And Paul Moore needs to be fired along with Monty Lee and all his crew.
Thanks, Dewey.
Clean house, and he drops the mic on
Hey,
that.
speaking of Paul Maneri, we hadn't mentioned this, Diesel, but did you see talking about injuries for a second? We were talking about injuries with the Braves. Did you see the tweet that Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central, good friend of the show, by the way, sent out about Dylan Askew, Diesel, over the weekend, who was supposed to start? I don't know, Tolos, if you've seen this or not, but on Sunday at 2:06 p.m., Jack Veltri tweeted out, "I've been told by a USC spokesperson that Dylan Askew, who was supposed to start today, was hit in the head by a home run that landed in the bullpen during batting practice. He's currently in concussion protocol." Jarvis Evans Jr. got to start on the mound. Diesel, when you talk about injuries and bad luck, I mean, what in the world? Your starting Sunday pitcher gets hit in the head by a home run ball during batting practice?
Well, the Army told me that was one of the $1 million wounds, but the Army must keep that money because I ain't seen a nickel of that.
That
$1
is
million.
rough, man.
How does that happen?
How does that happen?
How do you not have a net up, a roof of some kind? Look, it's dangerous having your bullpen out there in over the wall.
Mad Therapy, Tolo, who has been not Toloing as of late in the YouTube stream, says, joined in for once and immediately hear that Craig Kimbrell is ASS. I don't know if Craig Kimbrell is still what he used to be. I don't know that he is. I wouldn't go as far to saying that he's just. I don't think he's done mad therapy, and I know Braves fans don't want to feel that way because he was a big piece of the Atlanta Braves for such a long time, right? I don't know. I think I'm trying to be optimistic with the Kimbrel signing. I think he might still have a little bit left in the tank. A little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. We'll see, though.
Call another overreaction of mine is that it's time for some school, I don't know who it's going to be, hopefully it'll be an ACC school that figures this out, throw as much money as it takes at Rick Pitino to get him in your conference.
Oh, I like that.
1 year at St. John's. He had him in the tournament, in the round of 32, going toe-to-toe with a John Calipari-led team. I mean, let's be real. Those two were on as even a footing as you could get. St. John's basketball is everything to them.
Yeah.
And Arkansas, they got big-time SEC money. They don't both treat basketball in the exact same way, but you could certainly argue that, man, you got two legendary coaches going at each other. You got two fan bases that really care, that are really amped up about basketball right now. Somebody from the ACC, get Rick Pitino on your bus, on your team plane, get him onto campus, quit messing around.
Where would he fit in best?
Syracuse,
Diesel?
Probably.
Oh, in the ACC?
Yeah, if he's in the ACC, I'd say Syracuse. I mean, just because he loves being in the Northeast, he would still be in the state of New York. He is as New York as it gets. I mean, for God's sakes, he looks like one of those Gothic gargoyles that are hanging on one of the old buildings in Manhattan. Get him to Syracuse. Get him to Boston College. Something.
I'm with you.
Send him somewhere with resources and let him cook.
I like that. I like Rick Pitino a lot. I think he's a heck of a coach.
You better do it soon. He's going to die of old age soon.
Now, I have a question, though. To a lot of the Tolos out there, I mean a lot of you, I'm going to point at the camera. Why aren't we saying Rick Pitino needs to be fired? Why aren't we saying that? Because I don't know if you know this or not, Tolos. His team shot like 28% from the field. His team couldn't hit the broadside of a barn yesterday or on Saturday. Why aren't we saying he should be fired? It's on Rick Pitino. He didn't have his people. He didn't have his coach and players when they weren't ready. Well, they said that with Brad Brunell because he didn't call a timeout. But we're not going to do the same thing with Rick Pitino? Or we're just going to use our narratives when they fit the puzzle piece the best, I guess, right? Come on. That's ludicrous. I'm with you, Diesel. I love Pitino. Syracuse would be a good fit.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Plus, he knows a lot about great Italian food.
Man, wouldn't you love to just hang out with him for a few days, man? Some of the Did you see the video of him ranking the Italian food the other day? It was phenomenal.
I was just making a joke because that's the kind of restaurant he was at when he was caught.
What do you think?
Getting on with a waitress.
You had to bring that up, Ed.
I mean, like he's a red-blooded American.
Yeah.
Who amongst us?
Right. What do you think Rick Pitino's favorite Italian foods were in the video that I'm referencing?
Favorite Italian foods?
Yes.
Can you give me a hint? Are they main courses or are they desserts?
They are. That's a good question. They are main courses.
I'm gonna say some sort of like clams and linguine. He seems like a clams kind of guy.
Shout out to, by the way, Brother Contreras in the YouTube stream.
What's up?
So I'll do you one better than that. Instead of giving you a hint of what he was talking about in terms of his favorite Italian dishes, it was like a fun, you know how the school social media pages every now and then do some fun videos with the coaches, right? I'll just play the audio for you. Rick Pitino and his top five Italian foods.
Spaghetti carbonara.
1,
Lasagna.
3,
Stuffed shells.
2,
Chicken parm.
4 plus.
Florentine steak.
4.
So,
chicken
did you catch
parm
that?
is not number one?
No. Did you?
I love a good chicken parm sandwich. 4 plus? Is that what you mean? What did I miss?
No. Yes, 4 plus. Yeah, you're right. It was 4 plus. I don't know. Let me hear that again because the very first one.
Spaghetti carbonara.
1.
Spaghetti carbonara. Have you ever had that? I don't know that I have. I love Italian food, but I don't know that I've had spaghetti carbonara. And I'm probably saying it wrong. I don't know. That was his number one ranked food in terms of Italian food.
Spaghetti carbonara.
1.
Spaghetti carbonara.
What makes spaghetti carbonara like
I don't
different?
know. I don't know what spaghetti carbonara is. Do you?
Let's
I'm
see
sure
here.
some of our Tolos
Here's
do.
the recipe: 1 pound of spaghetti, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 8 slices of bacon diced. So that might be what makes it carbonara. Instead of putting in like a sausage
Diesel,
or
it doesn't
a
look like-
beef, it's bacon.
It doesn't look extravagant, does it?
No,
It looks like some
fairly-
noodles
Yeah,
with
it looks
cheese?
fairly plain.
So that was his number one, Rick Pitino.
Spaghetti carbonara.
I don't know about that.
1.
And then 2.
Lasagna.
3.
Oh, no, he had lasagna at 3.
Stuffed
As long as they
shells.
use San Marzano
2.
Yeah.
tomatoes.
Chicken parm.
4 plus.
4 plus.
Florentine steak.
4.
So stuffed shells, by the way, I think that's that's got to be 1 for me. It's so stuffed shells are the best. I love stuffed shells. So he has spaghetti carbonara 1, stuffed shells 2 in terms of 4 plus top 5 Italian foods. Lasagna 3, Florentine steak 4, chicken parm 5. I don't think I can say I've had Florentine steak. Have you?
Probably.
Florentine steak. Brother Contreras is the expert, by the way. You know, he
Help
lives
us
in New
out.
York. He says carbonara is a simple, iconic Italian pasta dish that originated in the Lazio or Lozio region.
Probably
I can't see that
Lazio.
far away. Usually served as a first course. The dish is made with eggs, fatty cured pork, hard cheese, salt, pepper, and tossed with long pasta like spaghetti.
Sounds delicious.
The beaten eggs create a silky sauce when tossed with the hot pasta and bacon fat. Authentic carbonara doesn't contain cream, garlic, or onion. How about that?
You had me at silky sauce.
I mean, no kidding. Brother Contreras, who, by the way, watches the show on the YouTube stream live from the Bronx, is probably our Italian expert there. I don't know, though. Stuffed shells has got to be up there for me. I love a good stuffed shell. I mean, those things are to die for. So, no pizza. I
What do you
guess
like
that
to
doesn't
stuff your
count.
shells with?
I don't know.
Anything?
I don't even know what's in them. You're back, by the way.
I'm
Diesel's
back on the stream. Yep.
He's back. Wesley Roberts was freaking out. He didn't like that. But I don't know. I don't hate that. I don't know that I've had Florentine steak. Chicken parm, to your point, is hard to beat.
Chicken parm is delicious. Chicken parm sandwich
Yeah, it's
on like a long roll. Come
good.
on.
Hey, before we run to a break, want to let you Tolos know. Let's find the email. I want to give a shout out to Rob Jones of 98.9 WORD, our sister station, for helping get this interview set up. But Thursday, we, Diesel, will talk all about the upcoming House versus NCAA settlement, which, could have a big impact on college football, with no other than Jay Paterno, member of the Penn State Board of Trustees.
Some of you know that name.
Some of you do, right? Son of Penn State legend Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno, we all know him from his days at Penn State. Jay, his son, will join us Thursday right here on the Fan Upstate. How about that?
That is a fantastic get. And a huge shout out to Rob Jones
Shout
for
out,
putting
Rob.
that together.
Shout out to Rob, no doubt. Joe Lysick on the Facebook stream says it's the 517 spotlight on Cole. What are we talking about? What's he mean there? 517 spotlight. Oh, because the camera went solo is what he's talking about. You disappeared. Did your internet go out?
It did. It was like, that's an odd way to find out I've been fired one day before our 1 year anniversary.
I know. 1 year of Wire to Wire tomorrow. How about Dewey? Knowing that it should, maybe he was just listening to the show earlier. Maybe that's what it was. But on the other side, we will take a look at what happened this past weekend in the world of baseball. A lot of college basketball conversation already happening on the show. But Diesel, it was a huge weekend for South Carolina and Clemson, facing a number 3 team in Arkansas and a number 11 team in Wake Forest that Clemson hosted this weekend. We'll get into that next. me do it, Diesel? What's the sound? That's better.
It's
better than mine.
It could literally happen to any of us. We're
I
all
love
putting
it.
this stuff together so fast and loading it into the system so
I
fast.
love it.
It could happen to any of us,
But
but it
we're
happened
going to make
Rob.
fun of Rob.
Yeah.
We're going to make fun of
I mean, a couple of TRBSers are doing well. They're winning right now in our wire-to-wire bracket challenge. But Rob left a notification in his promo. So point and laugh at Rob, would you?
Oh, it's so good. Quick update. Not much of a ball game right now. Oklahoma just putting it on Iowa 63-41. The top teams in women's basketball are really, really good. And that makes for a lot of uneven final scores, right?
Well, you know, we've had a lot of conversations with various guests on the show, and the idea, and I hope this continues to be true and continues to get more true, is that as women's sports and basketball, especially aggressive contact women's sports, get more and more attention, more and more NIL money, more and more viewership on television, that you're going to keep seeing parents putting their daughters into basketball programs, and you're going to start seeing more and more female athletes coming out and, being able to flesh out 50 rosters with really good talent to truly make women's basketball a parity-driven sport. Right now, it's the handful of programs that are consolidating all the power to themselves.
It's getting there. I see it because it was one team. It was UConn. It was South Carolina. Now it's, UCLA. Now it's Texas. Now it's NC State. Now it's Notre Dame. So there are some really good I enjoy it. Let's talk a little college baseball, Diesel. Clemson and South Carolina this past weekend had tall tasks in front of them. As Clemson comes out of the weekend, we'll start with the Tigers, 23-3, 4-2 in the ACC. They took 2 of 3 from Wake Forest, a top 15 team in the country, this weekend. Friday, Aiden Canuck basically shut down the entire Wake Forest lineup. Clemson wins 5-1. Saturday was a different story. Ethan Darden got to start for the Tigers, Diesel, and Clemson, I was there for this one, Clemson fell 10-0. Wake Forest jumped out 10-0. And in the bottom of the third inning, as I'm sitting there with several other media members from Clemson, we're sitting there thinking, man, this just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right for Clemson to be down 10-0. But what do? What does Clemson do? They mount a comeback. Final score on Saturday ends up being 12-10. They had a chance in the bottom of the ninth, Diesel, to take the lead. It was a fantastic comeback. I don't think in my lifetime, I don't think I've seen a baseball game in person where a team came back down 10-0. So Clemson, all the credit in the world to them. They fell a little short. So Sunday comes around, Diesel, and guess what they do? They fall down 6-0. And it's like, oh my gosh, Wake Forest is just jumping. By the way, Wake Forest is a really good team. Like really, really, really good team. A team that can make a run under Tom, and those guys are always going to get hot. So Clemson goes down 6-0. Diesel final score Sunday, Clemson 7, Wake Forest 6.
Wow.
They scored 10 unanswered on Saturday. They scored 6 unanswered or 7 unanswered yesterday. This Clemson team, all of a sudden, Diesel, they're really, really rolling right now. Wake Forest was a tough one, 23-3. 4-2 in the ACC. Eric Bakich has these guys playing really well right now.
Well, these are the kind of situations that ultimately pay off and pay dividends for you later on in the season. When you get a team that gets down 4, 5, 6 runs, because in college baseball, these teams go on runs and they can stack them up quickly. Just to show your team that you're never out of it, no matter what the score is, you could just point back and say, hey, we played a top 15 team in Wake Forest. We were down 10 runs.
10 runs.
And we came back 10 runs late.
It's
And then
crazy.
the following day, we came back 7 runs late.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows this Clemson team's never out of it. I think this Clemson team has Omaha capabilities. The only thing I'll say, the only knock that I have toward Clemson right now, Diesel, is the same thing I said last year. You and I started this show in March. Clemson went on a great run, lost in the Super Regionals to Florida at home. I said last May, in order for Clemson to go from good to great, they've got to stop chasing. They've got to be the chased, right? Last year, Clemson set a record in the NCAA for most comeback wins. They set a record. I think this year they're really, really good, but at some point, maybe it's the season, Diesel, they've got to go from being the team that always has to come back to the team that goes out 10-0, to the team that goes out 7-0. They've got to really take that up. I think they can. They're really good. They're really, really good. Before we get to South Carolina and what happened, this one's tough, with Paul Maneri and the Gamecocks, let's go to Summerville, where Tom in Summerville wants to chime in, overreact. I guess he's late to Overreaction Monday, maybe just now hearing that segment since he's in Summerville. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. I need to correct you on something. You said you'd never seen a team come back down from 10 runs in a baseball game. Well, you know, it's pretty obvious that the between South Carolina and Clemson's baseball programs, South Carolina once again has proven that they're the better program. Because in 2007 at Sarge Fry Field, the Georgia Bulldogs were up 13-2 in the 8th inning. And, of course, Ray Tanner and the Gamecocks came back and won that baseball game 14-13. It was the end of May in 2007. You can look it up. Hands down, I was there. I may have not been sober by the end of that one, but it was one heck of a comeback. But going back to my overreaction, this experiment is failed. It's over. This is downright embarrassing. It did not work. Ray Tanner cannot hire coaches. This did not work. In the best interest of Paw Paw, it might be time just to hang it up for good. And the South Carolina baseball program needs to go get Skylar Meade. He was once a pitching coach at Carolina. Yep. He's got Troy rolling. And it's just time to go young, a guy that's a little bit different philosophy.
That won't happen, Tom.
I know. But
because that's a Ray guy. That's a Ray guy. You're not going to get the Ray guys anymore. The Landon Powells as well of the world. I mean, now that Ray's out, will they be considered? Well, Skylar Meade's a good candidate, but he's a Ray guy, just like Landon is.
Well, this Paw Paw experiment, I hate to say it, I was dead wrong. I thought we would be good. This team, it's just a bad news bears, Cole. I mean, this weekend was embarrassing, but that's my overreaction. It's not working.
25 games in, Tom's ready to pull the plug.
Pull it. Start over. Rebuild.
Rebuild.
You know what that means, Tom? He's going to be there for 5.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll cover half the buyout. I don't care. I am not watching this baseball team for 5 years get the scoreboard broken because the other team is putting up so many numbers the scoreboard can't hold it. I can't do that. My mental health cannot do that.
Thanks, Tom. To his point, Diesel, they got run ruled on Friday.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing in the SEC.
12-3 Saturday, right? Not much better. 11-4 Sunday. I mean, granted, Arkansas is very, very good. However, South Carolina's not good. And
problem is it's not going to get any easier.
No. God.
Every weekend is a tough opponent.
You got
Every
21
weekend.
the number 21 North Carolina Tar Heels tomorrow, and then the number 1 team in the country this weekend at Founders Park. Diesel, let me ask you this question. If Arkansas put up 12, 12, and 11 in 3 games, how many runs do you think Tennessee's going to put up at Founders on this weekend? I mean, it's not going to be pretty. I'm not saying that's 35 runs.
Starting pitching is a problem for South Carolina.
Everything's a problem.
It's a problem for Clemson as well, right? Starting pitching has given up a lot of early runs there. So
they here's the deal: South Carolina baseball, from what it once was, it's very long gone from where it once was. However, I will say, Paul Mainieri will get more than this year. Obviously, he doesn't have any guys of his own. Monty Lee, though, Monty Lee's a little bit to blame in my mind. These are Monty's guys. These are guys Monty's recruited. So, like, I know everybody in the world loves Monty Lee, but at some point, he's got to take some accountability for this baseball program. They've been bad. And 35 runs gets put up this past weekend.
So why is it that in this situation, a coach has to take accountability for his players not performing, but when Clemson basketball is involved,
because
Brad
it's totally
Brownell
different.
doesn't have to. No.
Yes, it is.
By
Yes, it
your
is.
logic,
No,
so
it's
you
not.
just
I'll tell you why.
you just threw that logic out there for Rick Pitino.
No. Monty Lee's the hitting coach.
Still, he recruited the guys.
He recruited the guys, and his job is to develop the guys. That is literally his job. Paul Mainieri said, "I've never seen a better developer than Monty Lee." That is a terrible illustration going back to Brad Brownell. Monty Lee has been on staff for several years. Monty Lee failed at Clemson. He couldn't get it done there. He couldn't get past the big games and the postseason. And he's failed at South Carolina. And again, if you talk to anybody in the baseball world, they love Monty Lee. Rightfully so. He knows the game as good as anybody. But he's been terrible. He's been awful. South Carolina 25 games in, it's embarrassing. There's no doubt. It's far from where it once was. I'm not saying fire Paul Mainieri because he just got there. But my gosh, I don't know that Monty Lee – I'm just saying something's got to give from the development standpoint, Diesel. They're getting good guys in. They're getting good recruits. They're getting good players in. But they're not able to get these players to elevate themselves to compete in the SEC.
So you're telling me it's time to bust Monty Lee back down to basically a recruiting specialist, recruiting guru, and that's it. Just take him out of the dugout. Doesn't need to be around the players. Once he gets them on campus, that's it. Your job is done.
But you're judged by the fruit, right? Like, you're judged by the fruit that's bared. And what does Monty Lee produce? Look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him because he's a fantastic human being, and he knows more baseball than I'll ever know. But at the end of the day, South Carolina fans, like I've seen on Twitter this past weekend, the last 2 weekends, Diesel, it's bad. South Carolina fans, the diehards that follow and love this baseball program, man, they're not happy. And it's not going to get any better before the end of the season because, as you said, it is an absolute gauntlet. But we'll see.
Oh, maybe they should leave the SEC, go join the Sun Belt where they can win. When we come back, Cole, let's whip around the sports world and hit our daily wires. So much happening around the sports world. Cole, let's quickly whip around it and see what else is happening out there. These are our Daily Wires. The buzz is that USC Upstate baseball is off to a rough start at 12-11 on the season after sweeping Charleston Southern over the weekend. So, not a great start, but they are back in the plus 500 column. Congratulations to USC Upstate. Wofford baseball is 17-8 on the season. They took 2 out of 3 from Villanova over the weekend. North Greenville continues to roll 24-8 on the season. 11-8 in conference play, though, after losing 2 of 3 to Young Harris.
They've been really good this year, but conference plays dinged them up a little bit. I mean, like you said, 11-8. They're look, the conference that they're in, they're going to get tested, which is good. But we'll see. Like you look back over the last 2 or 3 years, you're not used to seeing them start off conference play 11-8. Which it just shows how good they've been the last few years. But we'll see.
Big news when it comes to coaching and college basketball. A lot of movement going on. Iowa has agreed to a deal to hire Drake's Ben McCollum as its next head men's basketball coach. He just finished his first season at Drake, leading the Bulldogs to 31-4, and the program's first appearance in the NCAA round of 32 since 1971. They won the Missouri Valley Conference regular season title and conference championship before beating 6th seed Missouri in the first round. Tough loss for Drake, though. You know, a program, they find the right guy, they find a diamond in the rough, and then boom, program with more money comes along and snatches him up.
It's a good hire. It really is.
Xavier coach Sean Miller has emerged as the target of Texas's basketball search. A deal is expected to be completed in the near future. The Longhorns informed Rodney Terry early Sunday that he would not return to lead the program, and the formal announcement was soon to follow. Some coaching news of a guy that spent some time right here in the Upstate. Former Furman coach Nico Medved is leaving Colorado State, and he is headed to the University of Minnesota. Colorado State had a monster season in the Mountain West this year. So, congratulations to Nico Medved. I said earlier, Cole, it's a tragedy that nobody in the ACC recognized this and said, let's give Nico an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah, I mean, look, no disrespect to Nico. I'll just say maybe Will Wade's a better candidate. You know, maybe Will Wade's a better coach. I know Nico Medved, like you said, spent time here in the Upstate, but I don't know. I'm really interested to see how that Will Wade hire pans out. Like, NC State, they were good. You know, they made a special run last year, right? I'm interested in that one.
In NASCAR news, Kyle Larson took victory lane yesterday in Miami. He won 2 of 3 races this weekend, the truck race on Friday and the Sprint Cup on Sunday. This was his first victory of the season in the Cup Series.
He's been dominant, Diesel, just to show his dominance. Kyle Larson earned his 30th Cup Series win on his 372nd start. He achieved 30 wins in less races than Mark Martin, Denny Hamlin, Dale Jarrett, Matt Kenseth, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Martin Truex, and Kyle Busch, which that just shows.
Hey, winning 1 out of 10. That's roughly winning 1 out of 10 starts.
This guy he's here. He's here to stay. He's really good.
Austin Hill, a NASCAR driver with 120 starts in the Xfinity Series, is set to compete in 5 Cup races during the 2025 season with Richard Childress Racing. He'll be running under the sponsor United Rentals. 2025, not the year for Cinderellas. There were 4. There are only 4 conferences represented in the Sweet 16, the fewest since 1975, and there are 0 non-power conferences represented.
Isn't that crazy?
It sucks, man. It sucks the way as soon as a coach has a good season, he gets snatched up. As soon as players show themselves to be stars, they enter the transfer portal. I mean, for smaller schools, it makes you beg the question, why are we even doing this?
It's just, I mean, man, dominated by these big conferences this year. And it's interesting. You don't see it every year, that's for sure.
Chapman High School alum and Clemson alum Jacob Bridgman finished 3rd in the Valspar Championship this past weekend, shooting -9. Congratulations to Jacob. Probably took home a big old fat payday, too.
Oh, well, he's already earned, as a 24-year-old, I think he's already earned 2.2 in his career. I went to bed Saturday night. Right before I went to bed, Diesel, I looked. I said, I was curious. I said, who's leading the Valspar Championship. And I looked Saturday night, Jacob Bridgman was leading. I mean, and look, every golfer didn't compete this weekend, but there were still some big names. Spieth, I mean, there were a lot of big names this weekend.
Thomas was out there.
He was. And he led as of Saturday night. Obviously fell a little bit on Sunday, but still a top 3 finish. I mean, behind 2 really good golfers. Chapman High School, right here in the upstate, Jacob Bridgman, who, by the way, I am efforting. He's a PGA Tour golfer, so it takes a little while, but I am efforting to have him on with us at some point this week. But congratulations to Jacob. That's awesome.
Oklahoma State's Wyatt Hendrickson stunned Olympic gold medalist Gable Stevenson 5-4 in the heavyweight final Saturday night at the NCAA Men's Wrestling Championships. Donald Trump was in attendance. Hendrickson was a transfer from Air Force. He trailed in the last match of the evening until scoring a takedown in the final minutes. The only takedown that Gable Stevenson allowed all season.
Wow. Diesel, I'm not a college wrestling fanatic or guru, but I saw this like Sunday morning. Saw these videos. This dude, number 1's a tank. Like a freaking tank. Number 2, they said this was the biggest upset in college wrestling history. The biggest upset. And watching the videos on social media, the crowd that was there, it looked like the freaking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, there were thousands. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
I've tried tuning in to watch college wrestling because App State's always had a really good wrestling program, but I don't have a clue what I'm watching. I just know that they pack the stands out match after match.
Diesel, I mean, I don't know where it was. Again, I didn't watch. I saw it the day later. This place, it was packed. In the celebration when Wyatt won, I mean, it was the craziest thing. It got me interested. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude, it's got the American flag draped over him like Rocky, He's served in the United States military. And it's just come on.
How do you transfer out of Air Force, though?
I don't know. To Oklahoma State.
How do they let you out of that?
I don't know. That's weird.
Agreement.
I'm telling you, man.
And finally here, Cole, Kirk Cousins seems to be looking to play hardball with the Atlanta Falcons regarding a potential trade. He is using the no trade clause to his advantage. He plans to wait until after the NFL draft to see which team is interested in his services before making a decision. So you're gonna bench me? You're gonna start a second-year guy over me?
Because
guess
Kirk
what?
Cousins,
I ain't going anywhere.
That's right. Because he has so much say, right? Because he's so good.
Well, somehow he keeps getting all these deals.
I know. He's good. He's not Michael Penix though. So
he's going to want to go somewhere else and start. And I'm not sure that anybody's going to give him starter money.
No, I don't know that they will. It'd be like, I mean, look, we're hot and heavy in March Madness right now, but the NFL draft, man, it's almost here. It's going to be a lot of fun. In the very next segment, Tolo's Diesel, we will redo our bracket. You're getting a mulligan with the current 16 teams. Diesel reconstruct who cuts down the nets. That is next. Diesel, you're a golf guy.
Love it.
Do you you use your fair share of mulligans when you go play in like charity tournaments or anything like that?
Yeah, I buy as many of them as I can afford, and I promise you I use all of them.
Well, the Tolos, by the way, somebody out there is just getting in the car and thinking, what the heck is a Tolo? Tolo is you, the listeners, who turn it on and leave it on. Turn on, leave on. That's what you are each and every day. We're all getting a fresh start, a mulligan, Diesel, as we have a new bracket, fresh off the press. And there are no X's, no red lines, no tears. This one's fresh, man, and we are going to get a mulligan. As in this segment, we are going to fill out the brackets as the tournament just started with 16 teams remaining. We talked about those games, in the 3 o'clock hour, and some really good games. So that is what we will do. Tolos play along as well. Phone lines are open at 844-FAN-PHONE. The Hub City Spartan Burgers text line also open, 844-326-3663.
So are we doing this individually or as a show?
Oh!
Because we could put our minds together.
That's a good question.
I don't know if you want my help because my main bracket looks terrible right now. Looks like it's got chicken pox.
Let's
with
do
all
it
the red
individually
marks
then.
all over.
You convinced me. Let's do it individually.
It's probably a smart move, honestly. Yeah.
But now that I say that, I'll get mine wrong. I like this. Everyone in life needs a good mulligan every now and then, right? A restart. So, Diesel, let's do it. We have 16 teams who will cut down the nets. You know, you're being awful hard on yourself. However, the team that you picked to cut down the nets, they're still alive.
They're still in it. I've got 3 of my final 4 still in
That's
this thing.
good.
Doing well there.
That's good.
Again, just I
trying to pump you up.
I thought Louisville would get it. I'm ranked 14 millionth in.
That's
on
better
ESPN.
than 15th.
Yeah, it's better than 15th million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I'm not feeling myself very much when it comes to picking these.
That's what
these
mulligans
games.
are for.
I
That's
know.
what
I'm excited.
You're getting a redo.
But here's the thing, Cole. I'm still pretty chalky, honestly, with
that's okay.
with what I took on my original bracket again, because 3 out of my final 4 teams are still in it. If I had to go to the Sweet 16, it's kind of an ugly story. I mean, I got Ole Miss, Michigan State, Florida, Texas Tech, Duke, Arizona, Alabama, Houston, Kentucky, and Tennessee still in it. So I probably got, doing the math here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 10 of my Sweet 16 still in it.
Okay.
It's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great.
So let's start in the top left. Sweet 16. Diesel, I originally had Auburn defeating Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. That won't happen because A&M lost to Michigan. However, Auburn's still in it. Let's start there. Auburn, Michigan, to start the Sweet 16. 8.5, 9.5 point spread, something like that. I'm going Auburn, but man, let me tell you this. Give me the 8.5, give me the 9.5 all day long. I think this one will be too close for comfort, but once again, Auburn escapes.
Well, Michigan showed us something over the weekend, Cole, by scoring 56 points in the second half.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Of their game over the weekend. So I like Michigan's ability to put up a lot of points when it really matters. Yeah. So I like Michigan a lot. So I agree. I also have Auburn winning this game. I need to go print out a bracket. You didn't print me one, if you don't mind. But
if you picked Auburn, what I'll do is there's one on the newsroom printer that's sitting there waiting on you, and I will give the Tolos my reason why I'm taking Auburn over Michigan. So Diesel's going to go get a bracket hot off the press. I've got mine hot off the press as I failed to print one off for Diesel. That's a Tolo point against me. It's okay. He'll forgive me. DB on the YouTube stream says, I have 11 of the 16, which is impressive. DB, that is really impressive. Brian Pettit, says, can we put the Gators in the championship? I'd be okay with that. Diesel would be okay with that because Diesel and I both have Florida winning the national championship. We do. We both have Florida winning the national championship, so we would be good with that. By the way, shout out to the 351 on the stream right now. Big shout out to you, Tolos, watching the show on this Monday evening. So now Diesel and I both have a hot off the press, brand new bracket. And we're both, you're going Auburn? You're picking Auburn?
Yeah, I'm going Auburn.
Okay. So we're both picking Auburn in this mulligan.
I don't know that Michigan's going to be able to do that twice.
I don't know. That game, I'll tell you this, man, that game it's got one of those feelings like maybe I'm going to be wrong. JB on the YouTube stream says, what's up, fellas? Good to see you, JB. We're redoing our brackets right now with the 16 teams remaining. Join us. Brian, DB, JB already in the stream. Text line, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line as well. Let us know. And I missed this text. Texter from the 203. We were going back to our daily wires with the wrestling. Texter says, my friend was there in Pennsylvania. Place was electric, he said. Trump was there and everyone was cheering. Texter, the crowd looked like it was 50,000. I don't know that it was. It looked that way. But that's a cool text. All right, Mississippi. Ole Miss. Whew, this one's going to be a good one. Ole Miss, Michigan State Diesel. A mulligan you are given, and you are going to pick?
I'm taking Michigan State in this game. I think Ole Miss was exposed in the second half against North Carolina. Michigan State will figure out a way to exploit that. Michigan State, they played really clean basketball down the stretch in their game against New Mexico.
Yeah.
And they were able to hold them at arm's length, play clean, hit their free throws when it really mattered. So I like
Michigan State?
I like Michigan State.
Man, these are two in a row where I'm sitting here second-guessing myself. I mean, I really am. Ole Miss is a good team, but I think I'm going to agree with you twice here, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm going to mark off Ole Miss. I'm going Michigan State. I'm going Michigan State, Auburn, Elite Eight. How about that? Those two right there, though, Diesel, those two games are going to be a lot of fun. Those could be some close games. We work our way down. Florida versus Maryland. The Gators are your national championship pick. They're my national championship pick. They're a lot of people's national championship pick, just to be honest with you. I'm not going to change that now. I'm going Florida over the Terps. Sorry, Shane Connick, good friend of the show, right? Maryland grad. You're not picking an upset here, are you? Going Florida?
No, I'm not going upset here. I am going Florida over Maryland, yeah.
All right, so we have Florida advancing on the left side. That leaves one more, Diesel, on the left side of the bracket. Texas Tech versus John Calipari in Arkansas. Yeah. I don't know. The more I read these games, the more I think this Elite Eight, or this Sweet 16, rather, might be really, really good. For all of you that complained about this may be fun on Thursday. Texas Tech and Arkansas, I don't know. I have no idea who to pick here.
This is kind of a coin flip game. I mean, nobody thought Coach Cal would get this far.
No.
Nobody thought he would be able to turn this team into a contender this quickly. But Texas Tech and the brand of basketball they play in the Big 12 is just fun to watch.
Oh, man, this one's a tough one.
I would love to see Texas Tech in there just for the sake of getting a different brand.
Yeah, it is a different brand.
In the Elite Eight.
Yeah. Tolos, for those in the stream, who should I pick? I'm going to leave it up to you. Texas Tech or Arkansas? On the Hub City Spartanburgers text line as well at 844-326-3663. Texas Tech or Arkansas? I'm leaning Arkansas. You pick Texas Tech.
I did pick Texas Tech. Consider the fact, Cole, that we could potentially have an all-state of Michigan Elite Eight in the South Division.
Yeah.
And then we could have an all-SEC in the West Division.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Think about that.
Spartanburg J on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, got 11 of 16. I'm not happy with my performance. That's not terrible, though, Spartanburg J. It's really not. It's really not.
It's better 11
than mine.
Of 16.
Oh, man. I don't know, Diesel. This one's tough. Texas Tech, Arkansas.
Do you want me to go to the office and get a coin?
No, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Cal. I'm going to go with
tablecloth
Cal.
jackets in the tournament.
I am, man. I don't know why. I don't think they're the best team in the tournament, but they found something. They started 0-5 in conference. I'm going Arkansas. Give me an Arkansas-Florida rematch in the Elite Eight. So on the left side of the bracket, the Mulligans, you and I both have Auburn, Michigan State. Mm-hmm. If that were to happen, who wins that game?
I got Michigan State beating Auburn. Beating Auburn.
Diesel?
Who has not looked super clean.
No, they haven't. And that is why I'm going to agree with you.
Which is why I'm shocked. And you'll hear this question a little bit later on. Earlier in the show, we talked to Rocco Miller, college hoops bracketologist. I asked him who's been playing with fire and who has not been playing their best basketball, what they're capable of, and he did not name Auburn. That's kind of surprising.
I'm going to agree with you again. I'm going Michigan State because I told you, I haven't been like uber impressed with Auburn. I think somebody's going to get them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that somebody, though, is Michigan. I think it's Michigan State. I think Tom Izzo gets them. So I'm going to have Michigan State in the Final Four. And then Florida, Arkansas, I have Florida advancing. Diesel, you have Florida versus Texas Tech.
Yep, and I got Florida advancing in that one as well. They're playing consistent ball.
So you and I both have Florida versus Michigan State in the Final Four. Is that right?
Yes, we do.
We can't bail on our Gators now. We've rode them this far. We got to go Florida, right? We got to go Florida.
Right.
All right, so we're going Florida to come out on the left side of the bracket. On the right side, Diesel. Duke versus Arizona. Duke, for me, all day long. They're playing at another level right now. I'm going Duke.
Yeah, now that Cooper Flagg is back, his ankle seems to be doing just fine. He put up, 18 points, I think, in their last performance. This is a scary team when they're back to full force.
Yeah, it is. By the way, let's see what I did in this one. I had Duke, Arizona in this one. I had this one right. So I had Duke, Arizona, Duke advancing. Diesel, the next one, BYU, Bama, I also had.
Have you changed your mind on BYU?
No, I'm going BYU, baby. Let's ride.
Wow.
Let's ride, Brigham Young. Let's go. Let's ride.
You're doing it.
BYU over Bama. Who do you have in that?
I got Nate Oates and Bama.
Okay.
I like them a lot. They're scoring like crazy.
Okay.
Give me Bama to end your hopes. I need it.
I don't know why I'm on BYU so heavy. They're good. Houston takes on the Boilermakers, Diesel. Mm-hmm. Houston's really good.
Yep.
A lot of people have them cutting down the nets. Does Purdue stand a chance?
I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm going to Houston. I'm going to Houston here. So we're both in agreement there. And then I also predicted this one on my bracket. At the very bottom, Tennessee, Kentucky.
Here's I'm going to give you something interesting, though, Cole. This may sway you a little bit. I don't know.
All right.
On this Purdue-Houston game. Purdue outstats Houston in a lot of ways. Now, they don't rebound quite as well.
Okay. But
they shoot field goals a little bit better. They're just slightly better at three-pointers. I think it's by virtue of on average, they take one or two more per game than Houston does.
Sure.
They get to the line a lot. They're a really good free throw shooting team. I wonder if those are the kind of stats that tell me if this thing becomes a rock fight and we get down under 4 minutes and the score is close, Houston might really be in trouble. Does that change your mind?
No, I'm still going. Okay. Still going to Houston. I really am. I'm going to go Houston. I like the Cougars to get it done. And then this one's difficult, man. Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, this one's really, really difficult for me. I'm going Tennessee, though. Tennessee, give me the Vols, baby. Give me the Vols.
As am I.
Are you?
I'm riding my original bracket.
Mine too.
I had Duke, Alabama in my original. I had Houston, Tennessee in my original. I had Michigan State making the Sweet 16.
Okay.
I had Florida making the Sweet 16.
All right. So for me, it'll
Elite
be
Eight. Sorry, Elite Eight.
It'll be Duke, BYU, Diesel, and here's what I'm going to do. I was high on BYU. However, Duke's on another level right
Not
now.
no mo.
Not no more. No. Duke beats BYU, goes to the Natty. Houston falls to Tennessee, just like I have in my original bracket. Tennessee loses to Duke in the Final Four. Duke plays Florida, just like I have in my bracket. And Florida wins the national championship. Diesel, how does yours end?
Mine ends in a very similar way to that. I've got Michigan State beating Auburn, Florida beating Texas Tech. Michigan State versus Florida in the Final Four. I think Florida just kind of has a little too much. I think they're just a little too complete for Michigan State. Again, do I see that game being a blowout? No, I see it being about a 6 or 7 point final differential. On the other side of things, we got Duke versus Tennessee. That's one of those games that Cooper Flagg, I think, will not be denied. Duke, Florida for the national championship. Just as my original bracket, I still have Florida chomping and getting it done.
Me too, man.
Wow.
And it could happen. It could happen. Let's go. Let's
I'm
get it
still
done.
down on Auburn.
Yeah.
I don't have Auburn getting past the Elite Eight.
We'll see.
We're going to talk to Rocco Miller, a bracketologist with nearly 15,000 Twitter followers. He's going to join us and try to make you and me and Cole a little bit smarter on this bracket. That's next on the Fan Upstate. take a little bit of a breather. You know, you get to rest a little bit, catch up on talking to your kids and talking to your wife. And then we're back in on Thursday and Friday. To talk about all of it, we bring on a brand new guest here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, Rocco Miller, college hoops bracketologist and analyst. Find him on his website, bracketeer.org, and on Twitter at RoccoMiller8. Rocco, thanks for joining us here on the show for the very first time. We ran some polling on our Twitter page over the weekend where 77% of our respondents said that the first and second round games were either very boring or somewhat in the middle. In the first round games, less than half of the games were close, 10 points or less, and exactly half were close in the second round. Is this an it is what it is situation with regards to both the audience polling and the tightness of games, or do you think there's something that could or should be done to tighten up games in the NCAA tournament?
You know, it's an impossible problem to put into one vacuum. I think there's a lot of components at play at the same time that kind of led to it playing out this way this year. Now, with the exception of, you know, you had High Point, who's not far from your area. I thought they played really well against Purdue. Didn't get a very good whistle, we'll be honest. So that might be one of those factors in play sometimes when you're a Cinderella team and the big business points towards helping these bigger schools advance if possible. I guess that's a theory that may be out there, especially if you watch UC San Diego and Michigan. That game certainly felt like 5-on-8, and the Tritons still almost pulled off the upset. But I think in general, like, this is just where we are in college sports in 2025. I mean, there's two leagues because of football that have a surplus of resources that are far different than I think the rest of the leagues. In basketball, you know, we were up until, you know, even just a year ago, we were wrapping up a decade where the Big 12 was by far the dominant league. And part of that was because they were a smaller league. They had 10 schools for most of that decade, and they consolidated to a point where, you know, their last place team would be still a top 75 level team. They had big brands like Kansas. Baylor had their best run ever. Iowa State made a huge run up. Kansas State had some great teams in there. They made the Elite Eight just 2 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. And so now the Big 12 is still a great league, but they're also up to 16 members. The SEC expanded, and the Big 10, of course, expanded as well. And with their resources, what it's done is you could be like the 10th or 11th best player in those leagues, especially the SEC and the Big 10, and you're making more in NIL than the best player for a lot of these really good mid-major leagues. Like, if you're playing for a Missouri Valley team and you're the best player on your team, you're probably still making less than the 11th best guy at Arkansas. And, you know, that's a different dynamic than just 2 years ago. As NIL has become prevalent for everybody, obviously it was out there a couple of years ago, but everybody's focused now on fundraising. You have GMs at places in the Big Ten and the SEC and now kind of going everywhere, but really focus on that part of it. And now you can stack your roster with guys that may not even see the floor, that would be studs at mid-major programs. But even for them personally, it might make sense to go be a part of that program, not only for the money, but develop their game, get the best training, coaching, et cetera. And now it's almost like you're looking at so many different levels of you know, talent and overall skill. And it's kind of shown its ugly face here this year.
Rocco, it's really interesting when you look at the SEC because, by the way, it's Cole here. I appreciate you hopping on with us. You brought up the SEC having more resources. And, you know, you could argue that the SEC's had more resources for several years now, but has the portal and NIL, in your mind, been that significant that the SEC could go from, I mean, let's be honest, it was you know, Kentucky and LSU every now and then with Ben Simmons, but now they're at the top of the game. So the resources obviously are a factor, but would you say that the NIL and the portal have really put them over the top?
Yeah, I mean, it's been trending this way in the SEC for about 6-7 years. You know, Bruce Pearl building up Auburn, Nate Oates getting hired at Alabama. You know, even though Musselman kind of crashed and burned at Arkansas, he had a great 3-year run where they made the Elite Eight every year. So the collection of coaches in the SEC, I would say the last 6 years has already been number one. And now the rest of the program, whether it's development and roster continuity, keeping those players together. You see so many guys back at Alabama this year, for example. You see what Auburn brought back with Janai Broom and building that core and keeping a lot of that core together from last year. You can almost get the best of every world now at the SEC level, because you can maintain and retain the best talent. The one and done era really hurt the Kentuckys and the LSUs, at least to a degree, to the point where they had to go out and figure out their roster next year. Now you have the ability to, if a guy has more eligibility and he's not a first rounder next year, it makes sense for him to come back. And Hunter Dickinson did that at Kansas. So it's not just the SEC, but it's that upper echelon, the has-beens in college basketball, plus the resources of the SEC and the Big Ten that make that possible. What we used to see not that long ago, especially like the Florida Atlantic team from 2023, which was tremendous, was you could get teams like that at the mid-major level to stick together for another year and just want to play for a great coach. And it wasn't about the money. It was more just about the opportunity to build and grow skill. But now you can find that all over college basketball at the highest levels. Some of the best mid-major coaches from just a couple of years ago are all in Power 5. The best mid-major coaches this year are already joining Power 5. Ben McCollum, Drake's coach, is now the Iowa coach. Nico Medved got knocked out at the buzzer yesterday as Colorado State's coach. This morning, he's the Minnesota coach. So it's everybody's doing it. It's not a one-size-fits-all problem. And the NCAA itself is very interested in having these power programs kind of run the show, because that keeps the leagues themselves, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, happy to be part of the NCAA. If the NCAA started making rulings or games weren't officiated very well for those power teams, there could be more and more threats for leagues like the SEC to secede the NCAA and start their own association. So there's all these different powers at play at the same exact time, and really none of it's benefiting leagues that are outside of those top three leagues.
Rocco, how much did it shock you? And we got the news here, in the last hour or two. Locally, just down the road from us is Clemson, a team that everybody had high expectations to make a run. Obviously, they have the egg on their face of McNeese State, but Chauncey Wiggins and Dell Jones, two guys that could have and should have been studs for Clemson next year, both enter the transfer portal. Basically, everybody else is a senior and graduating. Brad Brownell's going to have to start over from scratch, essentially. What were your initial thoughts when you started hearing that news come out?
Right, yeah, it's just another example, right? I think nowadays, if you're a player, and especially if you're not playing, and again, Clemson's been tremendous under Brownell the last couple of years. I had the luxury of being in Los Angeles last year for your 2 games down there in that run to the Elite Eight. It was great to be around them and get to know everybody better. But yeah, I think he'll figure it out for sure. But I think it just speaks to the larger tiers of college sports and Clemson's a powerful place. Like, you have good resources there. He's established a consistent program. Certainly outside of Duke and Carolina, Clemson and Louisville are right there as 3A and 3B in the league in terms of best places to go and play. And Clemson's worked their way up to that status. Amazing Little John Coliseum atmosphere, et cetera, but it just shows you the resources at the top are just that much different, to where those two particular players, if they get offered spots, whether it's at doesn't matter, like name your favorite SEC team, if they can go be starters at Tennessee next year, the difference in money might be big enough to where they do that. And plus, you see a league like the SEC this year get 14 teams in, which I didn't personally agree with. I thought 12 to 13 was more than enough. But regardless, you get to go play in a league like that. You have everybody watching you at the next level, whether it's the NBA, the G League, 2-way contract, overseas, whatever your level is as an individual. You want to play against the best. That's just the nature of being a competitor. And I think the ACC this year, obviously there was just a lot of games that were hold and serve type of games. There wasn't really a big challenge for Clemson. And if the money's that much different and the competition's that much greater on a night-to-night basis, and the SEC wants you or the Big Ten wants you, like that's gonna pull guys even from the ACC, which is it's a much different world than it was just a few years ago.
Hey, Rocco, you spoke about Clemson just in that last answer, but from a national perspective, we're here. We're just, like Diesel said, a few minutes down the road from Clemson. As you can imagine,
Right.
Thursday when they lost, it was all hell broke loose. But from a national perspective, is Brad Brownell looked at as one of the top coaches in the game? And then I guess the second part of that question is, was the loss to McNeese really that big of an upset to the national audience?
Yeah, well, I first of all, Brad Brownell's been Mr. Hot Seat for over a decade, and some of that speaks to how important basketball is at Clemson. If you have pressure, sometimes that's not a bad thing. It just means people care a lot. So I think that's not a bad thing at all. But I think Brad Brownell, even back at his Wright State time, just an amazing in-game coach. He's really good at adjustments. He's really good at the strategy of the game. He's really good at drawing up plays, X's and O's. I love all that stuff about him. He's figured out how to build a staff that helps him, with better recruiting, better retainment of players, obviously retraining the guys that you had from last year, set up the expectations for this year. And by and large, it was a successful year, 27-6 before the tournament started. Definitely a lot of good memories from the year, I'm sure. Obviously, the sour taste is not good, starting as cold as they did against McNeese. That surprised me as well, but it's a 5-12 game, and we see 12-5s happen all the time. We saw, the 12-5s went 2-2 this year. Colorado State also beating Memphis, so that's always possible. McNeese was not your typical mid-major team at all. They had a whole Power 5 level of starters, thanks to Will Wade, thanks to an increase of funding at their level, and they actually, in my opinion, went 7 deep with high major talent. I think the biggest problem was they didn't have a big man, and Purdue was smarter a little bit on their game plan to expose that. But I just think overall, what Brownell was able to do these last couple of years, and just kind of every time his back's against the wall, him and the team respond. I think there's a lot of respect for him nationally. Now, I think where we're going from here is you have to have the ability, kind of what Dusty May built at Michigan, I guess is a good example here in year one, was he understood that he can do all those things, kind of like what Brownell does in terms of game planning, in-game adjustments, X's and O's, all those great basketball things. But he realized he needed to go get a guy that can recruit, get a guy that can run NIL like a GM. So Michigan hired a GM. He hired an offensive guru, a defensive guru. So that Michigan staff now, and this is just an example of what a lot of the top programs are doing and how they've shifted to get around NIL and ensure success, basically running it like an NBA type of operation. You need somebody strong in all of those areas. It's not, at this point, Brownell or Dusty May, they're basically CEOs now. This is a top-down operation, and you need guys on your staff that can do all those things well, and if you have any holes, you'll be exposed. So that will be his test now, because I think in the past, Brownell and his staff did a great job basketball-wise and did enough to continue to be consistent, but now this is a whole operation. It's almost like running an organization in the pros.
Joined live by bracketologist Rocco Miller at Rocco Miller 8 on Twitter. X is where you can find him. We invite all of our Tolos to go give him a follow, help him reach that goal of 15,000 Twitter followers. Alabama on a little bit of shaky ground in round one against Robert Morris. Didn't come out and play the way that they should have, and Robert Morris, to their credit, played a really good basketball game. And they seem to have squared that away in round two, taking care of their round two opponent fairly easily. Is there a team so far, maybe outside of Alabama, that you can point to that's still in it but has kind of been playing with fire? Hasn't been playing their best ball, but they have been advancing?
That's a good question there. I think, you can look at, Michigan maybe. I guess they really turned it around. In that Texas A&M game, they were down pretty big, came back and rolled down the stretch. Now, again, they're a 5 seed, so I think them getting to the Sweet 16 is an accomplishment by itself. But certainly had their tests throughout those moments. Obviously, Maryland. I think Maryland in that Colorado State game was not expecting to get punched in the mouth the way they did. I don't think there's ever a ref in any game this year that would call that a travel by Derek Queen. Of course, that's some of the pushback online, but they drew up a great play, got the win at the buzzer, but I think Maryland was one where they came in really hot to the tournament. I think that game might have woke them up. So they play Florida next. That will be fascinating. Michigan State as well. Like Michigan State came in cruising. Didn't play great at the Big Ten tournament, but that didn't really matter. They were locked into a 2 seed. Certainly got punched early against New Mexico, but really responded in the second half and just kind of didn't do anything overly impressive. In fact, Richardson didn't even play that well in that game. But I thought the Spartans, of course, did just enough to get by. But I think everybody else, it's hard to find a perfect fit to your question because I think everybody at the top was really impressive. Florida, of course, just getting by UConn, but I think that's more of a credit to Danny Hurley and having a great game plan to slow that pace down, which is how UConn wants to play anyway. Florida was really rattled for a good chunk of the end of the first half, start of the second half, and they found that next gear, though, just in time with 6 minutes to go and made their move. But I think outside of that, there isn't really much to point to. Duke was extremely dominant. Houston, even though they won close against the tough Gonzaga team, they controlled that game. I was impressed by that. Texas Tech being able to beat Drake the way they did was beyond impressive. I did not think that was going to happen. So really impressed by them. I know there's other examples. Kentucky were very impressive against Illinois. So yeah, I don't know if there's a perfect answer to your question.
Rocco, my last question for you. What'd you make of Patino versus Cal on Saturday? Obviously, a team that loses their first 5 conference games of the season like Arkansas did. You wouldn't expect them to be in the Sweet 16, but here they are. You fast forward a few months later, just goes to show, how long the season is and Arkansas playing the right ball at the right time.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, for St. John's, that's a rough matchup because Arkansas, of course, had a Jekyll and Hyde season, some of that due to injuries, really figured it out late. They did just enough to get in. But matchup-wise, this Arkansas roster wasn't cheap by any means. There's a ton of talent. They still aren't 100% healthy. Obviously, Thiero's out, but they were able to kind of take St. John's favorite things to do away from them. This is a game where the rebounding was almost near even, which is hard to do against St. John's because they are relentless on the rebounds. The Red Storm still out-rebounded the Hogs by 6, but that was close enough to kind of neutralize that margin. Obviously, we knew coming into the tournament St. John's was a rough shooting team, but for R.J. Luis, their all-Big East star, he mentally just did not look the same, let's just say. And some of that, you got to give credit to Arkansas. They came out and they were the aggressors early in that matchup. Luis ends up shooting 3 for 17. His sidekick, Aaron Scott, goes 1 for 10. And besides Zuby Ejiofor, who played relentlessly and amazingly for St. John's, I think Arkansas was able to basically destabilize everything St. John's prefers to do, which is own the paint, own the interior, defense, offense, control the pace, outwork you physically. One of the things I've said about St. John's all year was how good their fitness was, just nonstop running up and down. They just wear you out. Well, Arkansas's got the athletes to keep up. So once you start neutralizing those things, then what does St. John's have? Certainly not outside shooting. And I think they found themselves in a rough moment with 4 minutes to go and figuring out how they're going to generate key baskets, and they just couldn't do that. Credit to Calipari and Arkansas for not only staying the course in this pod in Providence, but all season long, just figuring out that issue with Boogie Fland and John L. Davis. Now they're playing together. A lot of people didn't think that was possible. They figured it out, and they earned the win.
Rocco, usually in the NCAA tournament, we get a handful of stars that emerge. Sometimes it's guys like Jahani Broome, who everybody expects to be really good, shows that he is really good. But we always get a couple of stars emerging out of the NCAA tournament, outside of maybe Amir Khan, the assistant at McNeese State, who just emerged as a swag king. Is there somebody who you can point at and say, here's a relatively unknown player that has just played out of his mind through the first 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, on the first day, I definitely like Jemiah Neal of Creighton. He went absolutely bonkers against Louisville to knock them out. And he was kind of the forgotten man during a lot of the previews. And that was the first game of the tournament. 29 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. Played fairly well against Auburn as well. Obviously, they were overmatched in that game. but he was a guy that really stood out on day one. I think outside of that, some of the guys I look at are a little different because I'm looking for different hustle stats. I'm a big hustle stats guy. But at Alabama, like Cliff Omaruri was just so dominant in the paint against a really good St. Mary's front line. Between him and Mohamed Diabite, he's won 14 what they call hard hat awards. Again, this isn't going to get all the fans fired up in terms of sexy points and rebounds, but doing the little things, getting stops, blocking shots, it's a possession-by-possession sport in the NCAA tournament, and guys like that are huge difference makers. And I think you could also look at like a Trey Holloman played pretty well for Michigan State yesterday. Sean Padula of Ole Miss, obviously the guy you know very well from all of his time at Virginia Tech, man, he really stepped up against North Carolina. And then he followed that up with 20 more against Iowa State in a game that most people would have picked the Cyclones, I believe. So Sean Padula might be the best answer to your question.
Rocco, great stuff, man. We really appreciate you taking some time to hop on with us. It was fantastic, and we will talk to you soon, my man.
Anytime, fellas. Enjoy the action. Thank you.
Oh, fix your camera, dude. It's the last segment of the show.
Who do you think you are?
I know, I forgot. I went back to my chair for the last segment. I put the little treadmill away so I don't have to be out of breath for this last segment. But it's the final segment of the show. Diesel, Tolo's your final chance to weigh in on this Overreaction Monday. Diesel, I wanted to bring something up about Clemson basketball that you and I, on Thursday, Clemson lost to McNeese. And from the time they started losing until the time the game was over, it was a bleep show, right? I mean, Clemson fans were reacting, as you can imagine. And I think we failed to mention something because we talked about it a lot Thursday. You and I proceeded to talk about Clemson basketball on Friday. And I think we forgot something in the details. When it comes to Clemson, Brad Brunell losing in the tournament, not really having consistent years of success. I was thinking about that this weekend. And I think the one thing that we forgot to talk about and forgot to mention is a very simple fact that Clemson, while they have highs, they're not a basketball school. They're not.
Oh, stop with that
They're not a basketball
school,
school.
football school garbage.
They shouldn't expect.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
But here's the deal.
You can absolutely expect to improve yourself.
Well, you can improve, but here's what I mean. There's some Clemson fans out there that think that they're a national championship contender in basketball.
Oh no,
that's what I mean.
No.
I don't think they'll ever be there.
No. So look, I don't think that calling oneself a basketball school, football school, baseball school, whatever it may be, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive.
No,
being a insert sport here. Really, really well that your administration pumps the resources that your coach and their staff needs to be competitive at the tippy top level, top 2 or 3 in that sport, in their conference year over year.
See,
that's what I consider to be an XYZ school.
See, I think a basketball school is being able to compete at the top of the game. That's what I think of. When I think of basketball school, I think, okay, that team can compete for national championships. I don't think Clemson Diesel will ever be able to compete for national championships. They're not. When I say Clemson's not a basketball school.
But why can't they?
Because they're not a perennial blue blood. And if you're not a perennial blue blood, I think it takes a drastic run like last year and some good fortune to get there. And even when you have that, you still have to have things go your way.
Well, okay, so let's break that down. The blue blood conversation. That is an extremely difficult nut to crack.
Yeah.
Not as far as us talking about it. I'm saying if a school wants to try to become a blue blood,
have resources.
That's difficult. But you also have to overcome history, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like having the LeBron Jordan conversation or the Babe Ruth Shohei Ohtani conversation. Michael Jordan is a blue blood. Just like Kareem and Wilt and Jerry West and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, those guys are blue bloods. And as great as LeBron is, he's knocking on that door trying to get in to that conversation. And he deserves to be in that conversation, but there are those people who are resistant to it. Now, to me, a school being a basketball school means you are in the top 2 or 3 in your conference year in and year out, and you're winning it with some regularity.
Year in and year out.
Year in and year out. Top 3 in your conference. So
I hate to be Debbie Downer here,
they're
but
not there.
They're not there.
I know, right? They're not there. But
they're on their way.
I will say that they're trying.
Yeah.
They're knocking on the door.
No, I get
they're
that.
They're not quite there, but they're. I mean, because with the ACC being as down as it is, who's competing for the ACC year in and year out? Duke, North Carolina. I mean, remember Louisville just got back there. Like Louisville just got back to the ACC.
NC State
they
will
were
be back.
awful for a long time. NC State, they're not a basketball school. They're not getting it done, right? And like I said, that's commitment from the athletic director all the way down to the coach, to the NIL, to committing to doing everything right to go out there and compete. And that means if you're in the top 2 or 3 in your conference, you're very likely in the NCAA tournament year in and year out. You're winning games year in and year out.
My whole thing is, What I mean is, when I say we forgot to say that Clemson's not a basketball school, what I mean, Diesel, is there are a lot of Clemson fans and media and those with the program that expect this team to compete for national championships. And I'm just saying, I don't think you're there yet.
I think that's a little lofty, considering
I think it's a lot lofty.
Brad hadn't gotten into the NCAA tournament until this year, back-to-back years in his entire tenure.
I think it's a lot lofty.
So,
again,
I think they're on the way.
To your point, they are on the way.
Baby steps first. I mean,
Yes.
last
crawl.
year was dipping the toe in the water. This year, they're maybe up to their ankles. They're feeling that water's kind of cold.
You have to, I get it. I'm with you. They're on their way. And I give Brad Brownell credit for that. However, I'm just saying, with these great expectations comes great disappointment.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. If Clemson fans out there are greatly disappointed, maybe it's because your expectations were set a little too high. That's all I'm saying.
I will say with great disappointment, it means you had high expectations, which is something great to aspire to.
Sure.
And you're upset when you don't reach those expectations because they've reached it in football. They've reached it in years past in baseball. They're really trying to get back there in baseball. They win national titles in soccer. They win national titles in other sports. You could be a basketball school, but it takes a long time to get there.
Be tough, man. It's going to be tough. There's no doubt.
Tolos, enjoyed having you along with us today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Break down more NCAA Sweet 16.
1 year, baby!
And we will be celebrating our 1 year of Wire to Wire with you, the Tolos, right here on the Fan Up State.